evening and welcome to our town council meeting. We're going to start with a work session here for the first 45 minutes or so, and then we'll start our regular meeting. The work session is Willits Housing and Community Space Site Analysis. And Michelle and Catherine, you have this one.
Yes, and we're going to hand it straight over to our team, Jessica Garrow and Ashley Satterfield, to do our presentation.
Great. All right, let's kick things off. Can we get the next slide, please? Great. So thank you for the time today. We're really excited to provide an update on where we're at for the project. We wanted to share an initial timeline. So we started this project about a year ago. And this was the original timeline, thinking we might be in land use at this point. And one of the things that we really leaned into is community engagement as part of this process. And that's really continuing through the work that we're doing. And so this timeline will be updated as we move forward, but wanted to just highlight continued community engagement. We've had a number of opportunities to talk with neighbors, to talk with folks at the school. We've had focus groups, and that's really led to some of the things that we've already presented to you before today. And tonight we are excited to share some potential options and get some of your feedback. We're really taking time to make sure that we can connect with and talk with the neighbors. And so following this work session and the direction from Town Council, we will be having an additional neighbor meeting and updating kind of the Let's Talk Basalt website with other opportunities for the broader community to be engaged. If you want to go to the next slide. So tonight we are really seeking direction on two key pieces. The first is, should we continue to hold program area for a community space? And so we're going to talk through that a little bit. And then we wanted to also get council's direction on housing density. We're not necessarily looking for you to say it's X number of units, but giving us an idea of the direction to go in terms of the balance of development on the site. And again, following that information from you, we will do some final and additional community engagement. On the next slide, we have just a couple of key pieces related to opportunities and challenges, and think really exciting opportunities for both housing on the property as well as community space, and that it provides the opportunity for diversity of housing types, serving potentially diverse members of the community, and also some opportunities for regional collaboration and partnership, particularly as we think about funding for the housing. Similarly, on the community space, some exciting opportunities for partnership, which we'll talk about here in a moment, but it does create some exciting opportunities for spaces that could be flexible for the community. Next slide. We, in our last work session with you, had a number of questions from council relative particularly to the community space. And so this slide just highlights some of the key questions that we heard from council, and really focused on thinking about the operational pieces, programming pieces, and the financial impacts of including a community space within the project. These are pieces that we will continue to investigate and bring additional information back to you if after today's conversation you're still interested in potentially including a community space in the project. We wanted to highlight briefly some of the exciting pieces related to community centers. So next slide. And again, the idea of the community center came from community engagement conversations, from school engagement that we did, as well as the broader community. And a community space here at Willits does a couple of things. It provides a space that is flexible and can change to the different needs over time. And so when we think about what are the potential programming opportunities that could support arts programs, sports programs, things that are related to young childhood, all the way to seniors. So really opportunities for flexibility to meet different needs. And then really importantly, there has been quite a bit of growth within the Mid-Valley, and this provides an opportunity for an emergency resource hub disaster evacuation space in Willits, which does not currently exist today. But really exciting, I think, opportunities relative to programming, and I'm gonna step back and turn to Ryan Honey, who is gonna provide a couple of ideas about this space and other programming at TACA. So I'll step aside and have Ryan come up.
Hey, gang. Hey. I don't know if you guys knew I was presenting. I didn't, so here we go. Yeah, so we at TACA, I think, stand ready to partner with the town to try to do something interesting on 2E. I've shared a deck with, I think, some of you, and happy to share it publicly for our idea of what we could do over there. It's fairly preliminary. But we did a draft 5-year plan of what it could look like for TACA to program over there. And the vision is to do a youth empowerment center where TACA has its programming as the anchor tenant of a community space. And then when we would book stuff probably 3, 4, 5 months in advance, summer camps, after school programs, teen nights, things like that, all the stuff we already do, but we're basically out of space at the existing facility to do more of that. And then we go to community partners who do kids programming for youth and say, here's the slots that we have, here's open slots, what do you want to do? Do you want to be in the space? And then also then go out to other community activations that are possible. So sort of have a list of preferred partners that are nonprofits that provide stuff for kids after school and on weekends and do that. We think we have a model that is pretty cost effective, and I want to be clear in my thinking on this. There isn't a way to do it for the town at no cost. If you're going to operate a community space, there's cost associated with that. So you have to partner with somebody to absorb those costs. Right now we have about $250,000 a year education budget, which is growing really quickly. We're trying to really lean into that. We're having to do a lot more in the schools because we don't have time to do stuff in our space. So a space like this could be really, really impactful. And there's lots of other nonprofit partners that we get approached by for doing programming in that space. So we think we could step in on day one and do something with you all, but I think it's important to know that it costs money to do this, right? We have, in my draft budget, an additional staff person to run that space, which TACA would take that on. We have money for teaching artists, which again, TACA would take on. We also have a vision for evenings when there isn't the after-school workshops, but it's in the evening hours, hiring teachers for an hourly rate to basically sit there in the office that is separate from the kids' space and let the kids have a space to do homework, to hang out. So it's sort of a side hustle for teachers and a space for kids. And it's important to highlight that all of this is driven by a youth empowerment perspective, which is putting youth first. So we're not programming anymore at TACA thinking like, hey, this is cool, let's hope the kids come. We actually engage with kids on an ongoing basis through our youth ambassador program, our arts influencer program, and say to those kids, you know, what do you want to see? What do the kids want to see? And then we offer that. And so our engagement's going way up. So the idea for this space would be give the kids what they want. And obviously that has to be supervised and organized and paid for, but we stand ready to do that. And we think there's a coalition of other nonprofits who would do it as well. So yeah, this is part of the deck that's here. And there's more to it, but I think we have a model that is proven, that can work. And I think as you guys consider a community space, it's important to not let that go. I think having a community space is what's going to make that parcel unique and interesting. And I think I would encourage you guys to keep it in the plan, and we'll help you execute, operate, and run it, and make it great.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
And just to follow up, if, as we go forward, if you're interested in having more details about that, that probably could be its own work session and just having more information there. But it's just kind of to have a teaser about, is this idea kind of the right direction? Because what we really need to kind of have some of that information about where this could go to help us decide about the density and the number of units on the site. So thank you for sharing the teaser.
Yep.
And is that basically the teaser would be for more or less the slides that you shared, I think, back in May, right?
Yeah.
More or less,
Yeah.
as far as a plan.
Yep, we have that. I've done a 5-year pro forma for that, and would want to bring in our education manager, Anna Feist, who could talk to you about the detailed stuff that we're doing. But we're happy to do that at any point, so just let us know.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. Next slide, please. So last month, Town Council and the design team walked the site together. The building corners were staked to help illustrate the scale of the development across the site. And by walking the site together, we were able to get a feel for the grade change and help demonstrate how the design is working to integrate the grade change to be beneficial to the development. And in the future, we will provide another opportunity for site staking where we can provide story poles so that you can get a feel for really the height and scale of the development. Next slide. So now we will review 3 different scenarios that demonstrate various density scales across the site. The first scenario is the current design that was shared with you in May. In this scenario, 44 units are provided, which gets us approximately 30 units per acre. Previously, we've looked at the other developments in Town Center, and when you average those developments together, those provide approximately 54 units per acre. So just to give you some kind of comparison with Town Center, at 54 units per acre versus this development able to provide 30 units per acre. In this scenario, a parking reduction is not required. All required parking for the residences is accommodated on site. This scenario provides the community center at 13,500 square feet, which includes the full-size gymnasium. And the 35 parking spaces associated with the community center are slated for the adjacent street parking along Lewis Lane. We would like to acknowledge concerns that we received from the most recent meeting we had with the project neighbors. Their concerns include the height of the development and the overall density of the project, and that was responding to this 44-unit scenario. So just to walk you through the height in this scenario, the Lewis Lane building provides 3 stories of height along Lewis Lane with a partial 4th story. That then steps down to 2 stories with partially buried parking along Lewis Lane. And then the townhomes to the south that border the single-family homes, those are 2 stories as well. Next slide, please. So in this scenario, we are increasing the density to 55 units. This increases the units per acre to 38. There is a parking reduction required for the 14 guest spaces that are code required for a residential development like this. This keeps the community center within the scope, the same size as the previous scenario. In order to increase the number of units here, we are providing 4 floors along Lewis Lane. So instead of that partial 4th floor, we're providing a full 4th floor. And then the Willits Lane building is also increasing by another floor to provide 3 floors along Willits Lane. We are somewhat concerned about the height of the Willits Lane building as we approach putting another floor here. To the south, we have the single-family homes that have a setback from Willits Lane that are smaller in scale. And then to the north of this site within Town Center, Willits Lane is lined by parking lots with the development of Town Center pulled further to the east. So this would be an opportunity at the Willits Lane building where the height is a little bit incongruous with the scale of the development around it. So just something to point out as we're adding density here. Next slide. So in this design option B, we are increasing the density to 73 residential units. We do this by eliminating the community center on site. So the first floor of the Lewis Lane building has residential units. There is a parking reduction required, 44 total spaces. That includes 26 required residential parking spaces and 18 guest spaces. This has similar scale and massing to the previous scenario, and so similar concerns about the height, as well as, this was really a study in how many units we can fit on site total. We are concerned about the total number of units, the parking reduction that would be required with this, and the placing of primary living spaces along Lewis Lane to be adjacent to the street there, and concerned about privacy. So while we wanted to provide this as information, it's not a scenario that the design team would recommend. Next slide. And then a summary of the different options, the current design at 44 units, and then stepping up to 55 and 73. And we're happy to revisit this slide as needed during the discussion. Next slide. So just to speak a little bit to the timeline and schedule, we are bringing the initial outreach phase and the conceptual design phase to a close, incorporating all the information we've received, and we're really looking to move through the next steps, which would be initiating the entitlements process and moving into sketch plan review, and then going to preliminary and final plan review. And after that, that concludes the scope that this design team is contracted to do. So, I don't know if, Michelle, you'd like to speak to timeline after that?
Yeah, so, just for everybody to remember, we have a grant from the state that is helping pay for this section of the land use application. So sketch plan gets us through basically the concept, and then when we're happy with the concept, if we want to go there, we would start a second contract to go through preliminary and final plans. And that's where you get through all the details of what is the siding, what exactly are the heights, and what are those sorts of things.
What does the grant get us through? Just sketch plan?
Sketch plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a time limit on when we have to use that grant by?
You're pretty deep into it right now. I think we have until the end of next year,
Okay.
but I need to double check that. It's not a large grant. It's enough to get us through here and to be able to have a few more rounds of public outreach and to do a little bit more design work, and to continue to kind of flesh out some of these concepts. I think the tricky thing here is that we're not asking you to figure out how many units. We're asking you to figure out and kind of weigh some of the pros and cons of these items and concept, which is having a mixed-use development balances out potentially some of the impacts of having a parking reduction. So if we did have only housing there and we didn't have that balance of uses going on and off, you're probably going to see a lot more cars on Lewis Lane, which maybe today isn't such a big deal, but when the rest of Takaw gets built out and they have a theater there and they're going to have more patrons, maybe it's a challenge then. Also, that community space sort of balances that density as well, besides providing all of the potential programming and options there. So it's sort of throwing those pluses and minuses in both columns out on the table and saying, generally which direction should we keep going? Because right now what we're showing is holding space, and we need a little bit more direction on should we keep holding that space, or is there a really clear idea that we're looking to pursue. We know there's a lot more outreach and a lot more detail that needs to come out, but we can't keep doing that on all three options. So that's a little bit of where we are, if that helps.
Michelle, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
If you guys want to host a session on 2E at Takaw with the public, we're happy to host that, if that's of interest as part of the outreach.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right.
So what I struggle with is, like, how much are these going to cost roughly, these different options? Because that's going to be a constraint. And then obviously the council indicated that the Police and Public Works building is the priority, and we're still letting Justin like try to figure out what he needs from Public Works. You know what I mean? So I feel like we're earlier in that process, and that this one's kind of getting ahead. So that's my struggle
Sure.
with it. I mean, and you know, addressing the community outreach stuff as well, sure. But you see what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
how do we know what, you know, we're biting off too much if we have the budget? Like, how do we sequence this so we, from a capital outlay standpoint, it
Sure.
works? And we don't really know our biggest priority, which is Police and Public Works. You know what I mean? How that's going to play yet.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Doug and I have been working on is that financing these housing projects is entirely different than financing the police and public works stations. And the reason for that is that the housing brings in revenue. So for instance, if the housing units are for sale, that brings in revenue when they're sold. Another opportunity on this particular project is that we can have partners come in and take certain sections of the project. So there's an opportunity to have someone, say like Habitat for Humanity, partner on the townhomes. And that is a cost that they would be able to work through and absorb. So those are some details there that will take a long time. Without a site plan, we can't develop those partnerships over time. So that's a certain element as well. But I don't think that their resources for this, because this is also grant funded, will take away from the Public Works and PD facility. They're just different funding buckets. That being said, the only thing that's a little bit more complicated here is the community space. And by having that community space in the footprint of the housing helps both pay for the housing and the housing pay for the community space. So we are feeling good that with this youth empowerment movement that's going on through the Aspen Community Foundation and several partners there, that there are interested parties once this gets going who will help invest in that. But to have that price reduced a little bit by being part of the footprint and vice versa, the potential for senior housing units on top to be supported by Eagle County is our other partnerships out there. So that is weighing in on our decisions here, and knowing that this one will probably have a lot more detail to it as we go forward, particularly through preliminary and final plan. There'll be a lot more iterations through this project. It's just more complicated versus a PD and or Public Works, whether they're two facilities or singular. Ultimately, that'll be a much simpler item because it's not going to be multiple big facilities. It's more likely to be a singular facility with some heated garages, if you will. But we're aware of that very much.
What other dependencies exist between them as far as like staff? You know, just there's only so much bandwidth in a lot of areas, and that still weighs on my.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I think since for us, truth being told, I mean, that is why we have such a nice team provided. Catherine and I spend some time on this, certainly, but the most of the work is between Design Workshop and Charles Cuniff. So I think if we weren't able to staff this, we certainly wouldn't be here. But we totally respect whichever direction council wants to go. So.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask, what was the total grant for this phase that we're in right now?
$200,000.
And what have we spent?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Do you guys know?
Not off the top.
No. What's the cost to complete? Do we know? Is it forecasted or to get to the end zone? I mean, we've received some communications that are questioning the underlying zoning and things like that, and I'm just anticipating that this is going to come back. And if we end up in a PUD amendment process, is that included in the next steps? Because it seems like that's, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, so if we are able to get direction today on the community space, we can move forward with iterating a plan and getting a submittal for the sketch plan section of the land use application ready, as well as all of the neighborhood input for that. But this will get us through sketch plan. So, and then what, and that's a long process, right? That's got to go through all of the referral agencies, it's got to go through P&Z, it's got to come back to council.
And does it have to go through a PUD amendment?
Yeah, that's part of the
So
application.
that process is dependent on where we have existing land use approvals and we're moving towards something that's a variance without question.
Well, there's no specific use defined for the parcel. So no matter what, even if you picked an item that's listed as an example use in there, you would still have to go through the PUD amendment process because the PUD does not define the size, the square footage, the FAR, the number of parking, the height for this parcel. So no matter what, you have to bring in an application, even to build a one-story, 1,000 square foot building.
But isn't it zoned for a government use?
It is with an affordable housing overlay.
It is, and it says, I believe it's in the Willits Town Center PUD, or it could be the Sopris Meadows PUD, because it seems that it's getting murky about where this parcel is. It's actually in the Sopris Meadows PUD, but there are comments written in the Willits Town Center PUD about it, and it says, the affordable housing developed on the site may provide housing for up to 100%, calculated according to the town's community housing guidelines for the number of employees generated by the types of uses in the building and the number of persons housed by type of dwelling unit. That seems pretty specific to me, and it speaks to when it was going to be a daycare and there were only a few units because those units were abiding by the code, which said that those were to support the primary use of the building. The other thing is that the current plan, it's still not meeting the Willits Town Center PUD because it's 10 feet taller than anything else that's in Willits Town Center, and that's if you include the elevator shaft, and you should because other developers have to include it. And it's also not consistent with neighboring properties in the Sopris Meadows PUD, right? Because those are at 30 feet. So it's a lot of variances, and I just want us to look at it from the same lens that we would look if a private developer was here asking for this many variances. I don't want the town to be treated any differently. And as a member of the Sopris Meadows community, I also don't know that there's been enough outreach, and I don't lay blame on anybody. I think this is a really big project. And I think a project of this size would have had to have been included in the master plan or something like that. Like, think about how much feedback we got about BCC or about Jadwin. You get a lot of feedback through a master plan process, and this just seems like a really big project to only be going off of the feedback you can get from people who can show up to a neighborhood meeting. That's my feedback for now.
James, can you give us, I mean, you've been here, can you give us the history of what this property has been through? I mean, we've gone through a couple iterations in the last 8 years that I've been here. Sure. At one point, we were gonna have the childcare Taj Mahal, and everyone was supportive of that. And I know at one point, I think it was maybe gonna be a public works building, I've heard a lot from Angela's neighborhood, and I do wonder, I feel like it's an easy lot to look at from both sides. It is attached to Willits, so it seems like it should be prime for Willits height, but it's also in a depressed area. So then we start getting into this height conversation of, well, it's matching Willits, but it's not matching Sopris Meadows.
Sopris Meadows.
The other neighborhood. And so I feel like I feel like for town, it's always been presented that it's part of Willits, and I know Willits is the entire development, you know, it was this major development. But I guess I wonder where it does sit in that PUD, and I know each of the buildings in Willits was developed in some separate PUD amendments, not all of them, but some of them. You know, like we never heard anything about Stedman, they just did everything and built it, but Aspen was a huge meeting, so maybe just a little history of what this parcel's been through, just to bring everyone up to speed, because I feel like there is some history there that we're losing.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of history. It is in the Cypress Meadows PUD. It has never had an approved site-specific development plan on the site. Originally, Willits Town Center was just a parcel in Cypress Meadows PUD, and then it kind of received various development approvals, you know, on its own. And the Cypress Meadows PUD has certain design guidelines for both the single-family area and the multifamily area, but neither of those design guideline sets actually apply to this parcel. In the Cypress Meadows PUD guide, it lists the specific parcels in Cypress Meadows that the design guidelines for either multifamily or single family apply to, and it doesn't include this parcel under those. However, in the Willits Town Center PUD, it indicates that parcel 2E should meet the design guidelines of the Willits Town Center PUD. There have been various iterations of ideas or concepts that have been thrown out there over time. There was an arts campus idea that was thrown out some years ago, and council discussed that, and you know, it never really got traction. There was several iterations of daycare plans on the site that included housing or didn't include housing, and you know, there was some fairly intense daycare and housing scenarios, and then there was scenarios that were considered that were just the daycare center itself. And the town actually entered into a resolution with Blue Lake Preschool at one point in time to kind of see if they could fundraise and be the developer of a daycare on the site. But then the Stotts Mill daycare opportunity came along, and Blue Lake slotted into operating the daycare out there, and so kind of that resolution was eliminated or terminated. And so, you know, there's been a mix of plans, but no site-specific development plan that was ever approved for the site. And the Cypress Meadows PUD says that a site-specific development plan has to be approved in order for development. So, you know, it's kind of you need to establish a plan to do anything there.
And is it still considered a government transit lot?
There's a set of uses that are described, I think, in the Cypress Meadows PUD, and it's government related, and then it also has an affordable housing overlay that was put on some years back, and so they kind of jived to come up with a series of potential uses that could be government related, community related, and then also affordable housing related, is my understanding. So.
Because, yeah, that's where I'm reading that the affordable housing developed on the site may provide housing for up to 100% of the employees generated by the primary use.
I'm not familiar with that passage, but there's a lot of documents out there.
My other question, James,
Cypress Meadows.
In the past, there's a 2018 study or assessment that the town did about parcel 2E that says that the town assessed that 15,000 square feet of development were appropriate for the site. Do you have that assessment anywhere? I haven't been able to locate it, but I see it referenced in plenty of Times articles.
I haven't looked for it, but we can take a look.
Daycare facilities.
Yeah.
Okay.
You said 2015?
2018.
2018.
So it seems to me like there's a lot of gray area around which PUD, even though it's in Cypress Meadows, there's plenty of references in the Willits PUD. Either way, there's going to have to be PUD amendments, that we're sure of. I'm more interested in hearing, I guess, having a better understanding of the community input. What I have heard is that there are issues with the density, the proposed density, and the proposed height. What I haven't heard is the surrounding community okay with the community space, right? Angela's really, rightfully, right, reading the black and white, which there's usually not so much of, focus on this government use, but if we're gonna be amending the PUD, whichever one anyways, how does the community feel about the community space? That's what we're here today to decide so that we can continue to speak to the community about height and density. What do we know about that? What have we heard from them? Do they want the community space?
What do they want in it?
And what do they want in it?
Like, what are the use
Because I
cases
think
for it?
that then leads me to my next question is, okay, so we know that the surrounding community is unhappy with the proposed density and height. I also would like to have a better understanding of what would they be happy with, right? Like, we are here to find solutions, not just pose more questions. So if they don't want 44, what would they be happy with? If they don't want 2 stories for the townhomes, it's,
Well,
I'm hearing a lot of what we don't want. I'm not hearing a lot of solutions about like what is acceptable.
And I would like to go back, I think, either not last meeting or I think probably the meeting before, we were once again talking about community spaces. It was when we were talking about the police station. And can we get a general list of all the community spaces that we have and/or their calendars and/or their requests so that we know who is being lost in this need for community space? I know Takaw does some community stuff. I know Eagle County has a great community space. The library has a great community space. The school has community space that's not probably used as community space because there's certain restrictions. Totally understand that. This sometimes is a community space. I think this is a great community space. I think it has a lot of benefit. And I think I don't hear people that I've talked to push back on this community space. They're pushing back on the heights. Is that it's abutting a neighborhood. The townhouses are the same height as the houses. I don't think that's a huge problem. I think what I'm hearing is the community space with the extra story is people are very taken back by it. And I get it. I mean, at first I was like, well, listen, it's part of Willits. Like, what do next a kind of kitty corner in our 3-story townhouses. So what are we fighting about? But in reality, it's next to Takaw, and Takaw's 1 story. So it's like,
Right at that point, when we build the big theater.
yeah, that's gonna be 3 stories, right? So that's something though to bring up in these conversations. And so I wonder if, we're still in this stage. From my opinion, I think current design is good. I think maybe there's some tweaking to do on that. I don't think we could go higher density. I think the neighborhood will completely revolt on that. But I think to Ryan's statement, that's something also to bring into maybe a greater community conversation. And maybe we do 1 or 2 more reach outs and we do something at Takaw. It's very easy for the neighborhood. And we try to really, really understand the people that are going to oppose this. Obviously we want it for the greater good. Obviously we want the best outcome. But I also don't want us to go through this whole process and end up belayed in a fight with the neighborhood.
Right, like, let's get ahead of the
No, it's
opposition.
never, it's
Let's
never gonna
understand
be
them now
good
and
if
not
we just go
later.
straight into a PUD amendment. We're gonna do this, and this is why we're gonna do it, and we think this is the best for the town, because we're up here, and these are the studies, and but to Ryan's point, I mean, whether Takal blocks their somewhat of view, or the community center with a little extra housing blocks somewhat of their view, I think is a greater conversation to have and something to put out there in the universe to get a full understanding from everyone. And I know we've done community outreach, I just think some of these people felt like they weren't reached out to properly, or they, everyone's so busy,
It's a long process.
It's hard. I know I've dealt with it many times of, why am I getting this parking ticket? No one told me, or what, So I understand, but I just feel like this is, we want to maximize it as council for the greater good of everyone. And I feel like that neighborhood feels like this is being forced on them in some way. And, I know we've done a lot of work towards it, but I just explaining what I've heard.
And maybe,
Is-
sorry.
Is the community center viable then if one is, feeding the other as far as like the income and being able to build the housing? Is the reason it's so dense at 44 units because it's not financially feasible at less than 44 units?
No, I think we're, as a team, trying to balance, when this project started in 2024 and we had direction to go forward, it was to maximize units on the site. And so we've really been trying to balance what is maximizing units on the site and having density along Lewis Lane, and then having it tiered down as it gets closer to that single-family neighborhood. And so going through that, part of doing a density study is figuring out how you can park the project. And so some of that is figuring out how many parking spaces can we get on there, and then working backwards. And so that's where the 44 number came from. And that's why we keep showing in through those options. This is, if we go denser, what parking reduction we'll need. And just kind of having that trade-off there. Do you want units? Do you want parking reduction? And those are all things we can continue to study. But again, that community space helps reduce that impact as well. So by having that space there and having another community benefit on our second to last vacant property in town is just another way to maximize the uses.
And I remember that conversation really well, sitting right here. And I want to acknowledge how frustrating it probably is for the design workshop and CCA and planning team that we did. We were like, wow, this is one of our last opportunities to build affordable housing. We should do as much as we can. And, but what has come out since then, right, has been, quite frankly, a lot more opposition to that kind of density, I think, than we expected. So thus the about face on this. I think we're doing our jobs and listening to the community here. But again, I think I just want more understanding of exactly where the problem lies. Would the community be okay with the community space if it was only one level? Because I also remember the explanation of how and I thought that was really thoughtful, how the townhomes were only 2 levels, and then it stepped up as you got towards the commercial side of Willits. But is the feedback that they just don't want it to feel commercial at all because it's viewed as being part of the residential side and not the commercial side, and just more of that, I think.
Well, I think one thing that's really helpful, and I think one thing that we haven't had a chance to do, and we haven't frankly wanted to spend the resources on quite yet until we had a little bit more direction, is creating some more elevations and perspectives from all sides of the development. So we've been really focused on what's the development going to look like when you're coming down Robinson, or when you're looking at it from the Takah side of Lewis Lane. How does this match that side? We just haven't had time, and frankly, we've been working through how many units it's going to be to change that perspective if we were on the other side of the fence so much. So that is, I think, really important information that we can bring back going forward, and do some site studies as well, because frankly, what we've heard mostly is that there's support for the community space, there's support for the housing, it's the height. And that's something we can absolutely work with. We just need that direction before we spend resources continuing down that path.
I wanted to add one
Go ahead.
thing here. Maybe we're going about this kind of like it's the order of operations. Maybe we should be focusing more of the outreach on the community space right now and get people, like, what do you want to see here? Like, this is kind of to be the centerpiece of the site, right? Obviously, Takaw and Ryan have some ideas about that. We've seen some of that. What about doing outreach that way? And like, let's nail that down. What are we going to do with it? And then once we have people engaged in that process and feeling like they're being heard and we're going to get the benefits from a community perspective that we want, okay, now let's continue the journey with them and figure out what to do with the housing part of it. Because they both go together, but it's almost like people, one, they're worried about the density. They always are. But two, like as a common refrain is like, I thought, somebody wrote, I thought we were going to have another community session before. Whatever happened, I wasn't at the Hoffman, but whatever happened, the perception is like, hey, we're not getting heard. So maybe we kind of change tacks and engage on like, what does this mean from a community perspective?
Yeah.
And then tailor the housing around that. And then we'll have a really viable, whether it's that or something else, viable community plan as far as capital, as far as operations, and then the rest will be a lot easier to figure out.
I have the complete opposite.
Okay, let's hear it.
To your point, the community space is not the driver for me. The driver for me is the affordable housing. And if we get into a negotiation and we go through a PUD amendment and we lose any square footage on this project to be comfortable with the approval going forward, it's going to come out of the community space, is how I see it. Because we have a database, I think the Crown has, of what is out there and what's to come. And I think that prioritizing affordable housing is the first priority I've heard over and over. And I'm afraid if you get into a square footage, density, height, less units, that 4,000 that you're committing to a process to determine what it is going to be the sacrificial lamb at the end of the day. Because I think most would support housing more so than, if you were going to say, what do you want to give up, 10 affordable housing units or 4,000 square feet of community space?
I don't know. I think.
But that's the thing, like, if you go and start hacking
But-
pieces of community off, what are you left with?
Well, that's what I'm asking is, if we get into a reduction of space on the whole buildings, does the community space get reduced? We're looking at a 4,000 square foot space. If we have to give up 10,000 feet in the development, then what does the community space end up looking like? And we don't have that answer either. Because I don't know, that's just where I'm coming from.
I just think-
I'm looking at it 180 degrees differently.
Most conversations, I think, about density of this size are had in a process like you do with the master plan. And this parcel is not identified for density in the master plan. It feels like we're just, how much can we fit there, and just plopping it down, where there is so much more forethought in developments and density of this size in other parts of our community. So that we're sitting here talking about the density, which is really important. It's a really important thing to talk about for a parcel of this size, and we don't have, any sort of planning around it, as official as the master plan. Just feels like it makes me a little nervous.
Well, to play devil's advocate to that just a little bit, I do think that if a private developer were coming to us with 100% affordable housing development, we would make a lot of variances for them.
For sure.
So that's the one, at least, thought that I have as far as like, with the town as the developer, why are we asking more than a developer would? Well, that's because we're providing 100% affordable housing.
And I know you guys are working on a memo, I think. I don't know if it's out to the rest of the council yet, but I think that answers a lot of the questions about like, what does the master plan say? What is the, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it'd be good to get on the same sheet of music.
Yeah.
for that.
I would like to just quickly apologize too, because I can see your head just spinning.
Well, I just want to jump in if I could.
Yeah, please. 'Cause I could-
On kind of community engagement. So I think the intention today was to understand from council, is there a desire for us to continue to explore community space? Because that helps us in the next round of community engagement, which is intended to be neighborhood meetings and broader opportunities. So we want to do targeted outreach with the neighborhood, as well as provide the rest of the community the opportunity to weigh in. We've done both of that through the process, and what we have heard is a real interest in housing on the site, but also a lot of support for the community center. Differing opinions, but high school students really wanted kind of a gym focus. The rest of the community wanted more of the flexibility. And so thinking about opportunities to have a theater practice or an opportunity to have a practice room if they're playing an instrument. A real focus on youth and family amenities in that space. We've really heard that loud and clear. And I think from some of the neighborhood conversations, I think Michelle is right. It's really about the height as the main concern. And so I think today we just want to understand, do you still want us to explore the community center? Because then we can do some great additional outreach with neighbors and the rest of the community.
I certainly do. Sorry, you haven't talked yet, Dean. Go.
Yes, so thanks for circling back to that, because that's what I kind of understood this conversation to be. And it would be my perspective that we presented option A, I believe, to get feedback on, and then from there develop B and C, right, to see how far off the mark it could be, and then a parking. Where my perspective would be is that you presented option A, your feedback is it's too dense, it's too high. So I'm not sure, I feel like the effort should be keep the community space, but go backwards and present maybe less density and less height, and then see where the community gets, because we're not going to gain any ground by wiping out the community space and being all affordable housing. It's tougher on the community. It doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. And if the community has spoken already, that's what they've said, is not to present these two other all affordable housing options, to go backwards a little bit from where we are, as opposed to here's what it looks like if we trash a community space.
Yeah, and that was my.
So that would be my suggestion. I'm for keeping the community space in there, scaling it back, then getting community feedback, and see where we go from there. That would be my position.
I think that we all are in agreement that, like, we want to keep the community space. And Ryan made a point earlier about, our job is to, get the feedback from this specific directly affected community, but then balance that with the greater good of the entire town. And that is really the struggle to me with this site, right? I mean, the community space is going to benefit everybody. Everybody's for it. Yay. The height and the density is, of course, where we're going to lock heads, because the benefit of the greater town is going to be more affordable housing, more density, which is in direct conflict with what that directly affected community wants. So I'm with Dieter on, we know what it looks like to go off the rails in one direction. Let's see what it might look like to keep the community space, lower density and height, and see if we can find a comfortable compromise that we feel like we're still serving the greater good and providing as much affordable housing as we can, while also considering the directly affected neighbors.
Second.
And if we nail down the community space, and it's something like everybody's excited about, and it's going to be cool, everything else will fall into place. And I know that you have to value engineer. We just don't want to. If we come up with something great to be in that space, we want to make sure it's still great when it goes through that value engineering process that inevitably things have to go through. But I think that's going to be really key to getting people bought in, not just into what it is in the end, but the process of getting there. Because that's what, everybody's saying, and that's what people want, is some space for youth, a space to get folks together and everything. And I'm all for affordable housing as much, but this is what this is for. We need to make sure we honor kind of the wishes for there, and I think it'll be really cool.
And I would just like to apologize too, because I know I'm always amped up on, well, what can you fit in there? How much can we fit in there? What can we take away on part? I'm always encouraging that, but then after listening to the neighbors, I say, okay, well, I get what you guys don't want. But I would highly encourage, if we're going to do story polls, we need to put a story pole on Takaw, because that is part of this story, and that can also shift the concept and should be brought up in this meeting of Takaw has this plan. And if you are worried that you're gonna have a building in your view, Takaw's building's gonna be big and square. There's not a lot you can do in a theater to make it rounded and step back and fit, for what they want in a big theater, and that's their plan. So that needs to be a part of this conversation to help the neighborhood understand, hey, this isn't we're not just talking about this unit, because we are, but Takaw is gonna be a big part of this too, and I'm sure we'll have some pushback on that at that time. But I think the community center everyone wants, and you guys have done a great job putting that together, and Takaw has a great plan for it, so we have a good partner in it. So thank you guys. I know it's hard getting.
The name for the marketing, the community meeting, we'll call it to E or not to E. That is the question.
Been waiting all meeting to say that.
Seriously.
You're invited everybody.
That's great.
Let's get the technical gobbledygook out of the way.
Run for council.
Preserve the space, but get the technical issues resolved with the community. And then that doesn't have to come into play here 6-9 months, a year from now. It's resolved now. And that's the engagement we need, I think, to get past the first couple of hoops, barriers.
You guys have the direction you need?
Do you want to summarize it? I mean, I'll try to summarize it. What I heard was beginning with the current design, work, I guess, on a less dense design from there, do more design work, and then present options for public outreach. Is that right?
But with the community space
community
staying
space
as
options.
the
Yes.
yeah.
And it's more about the height than the density. Density as well, but the height is the primary issue.
That's what I've heard.
Well, I was hoping maybe with the community space outreach, we could actually have some ideas. I mean, I get Ryan involved, get some live ideas, not like a gym, like things that are more generic, but let's see what people think. Conceptually, we don't have to get too into the weeds, but what do you guys think about that?
I think it's density too. I think
It
that
is
it's the entire question. It's, what made, I too remember the meeting. We're like, yeah, stuff everything in. And now we're like, maybe not. And we bring it back and we got to put it to them again and have them be like, okay, cool, the height is great. Now it's the density. And we are going to probably have to find a happy medium, but all questions need to be asked.
People who live in that neighborhood, I haven't heard a thing about you. People who live in that neighborhood were told there's going to be development. Everybody knows that there's going to be development on that site. Everyone's expected it. Nobody thinks it's just going to stay an open field. What they were told, though, and some of them by the town directly, is it will be low density, it will be some sort of public use, and it will hug Lewis Lane. That's what people believed. So this is just so starkly different than that. So I think it is about the density as well. It's just, people have always known there would be development. It's not like anti-development. It's about how dense it is and how big it is.
So do we want to have some concepts, refined concepts out to the public in this outreach as far as the community space too? I think that'll be really important.
Yeah.
Come up with some specific ideas, and you've got some great ideas, Ryan. I'm sure there's others, but let's sharpen the pencil with the public on that and, get their feedback. And in addition to density and all the things, that especially the neighborhood nearby cares about.
Yeah, and to Ryan's point, I'd like to see, Crown Mountain.
Yeah, I want to know, where
so
are we?
know, here, is this theme, well, there's that theme's over here. What about this theme? That theme's right here.
We have
let's
done that,
find
just so
some-
everybody knows. We
Yeah.
have collaborated with Crown Mountain Park. We've done a lot of outreach with students, seniors, gym owners, all of that is our stage one. And that's how we got to the size of the community space that we're showing. But we can certainly bring that back and do a take two on it as well, just to continue to flush it out. But that's how we got to the size we are, because we struggled with that quite a bit. Should we have a basketball court? Should we have a half-size basketball court? Should we have something different than a basketball court? All of those things. So the plan that you see is based on that feedback, and we didn't put it in this slide because we were trying to keep you guys on schedule, but it's on the website on Let's Talk Basalt, and we'll bring it back in another presentation, as well as have a refresh with the community on it.
And just one last point, and I think as the greater town of Basalt and as we've continued to grow, at some point growth is not sustainable. At some point we do have too many people. And I know that's not a conversation that towns talk about, and I know that's never been in the planning conversation, and I've asked for the last 7 years, how much water do we have? And the problem is we have enough. How much sewage do we have? Problem is we can keep expanding. We have enough power. We have all the sustainability to continue growing, but at some point we are gonna grow out of our highway. And we are gonna have too many people here, and it's not gonna be the community that we all moved here for. And that's not how we talk about in towns, and I just wanna put that out there because it's something that I constantly think about, and I'm starting to hear it more and more. And I know Basalt's always gonna change, and I know growth is inevitable, but there is a point that we are gonna reach that it's not gonna be fun to be here, and I don't want that to happen. So just, you know, we could want as much affordable housing as, you can never sustain affordable housing, you can never build enough. And that's part of the conversation too. So I just think we all have to think about that as, you know, with all this land, it's just, it's gonna continue, and so we should have some type of thought on that.
All right, well, do you guys have what you need now?
We do, thank
Clarified
you.
enough and all that good stuff?
Thank
I know we ran longer. Thank you all for all the material and all the work, and we're looking forward to the next steps. We are running a little behind here, but let's take what do you guys think? Let's do 10 minutes, and then come back in and we'll start the regular meeting. Thanks. Good evening and welcome to the Basalt Town Council's Tuesday meeting here. We're running a little late, getting back from a really robust work session on the Willits Housing and Community Space. So I will go ahead and call the meeting to order now. And before we do roll call, just want to remind everybody, if you want to access the meeting via Zoom so you can join and make comments, you're welcome to do so. You just need to go to basalt.net. Click on the Agendas and Minutes tab, and then go to the August 26, 2025 meeting packet, and there's a Zoom link and instructions there to do that. Pam, would you please call the roll?
I'd be happy to. Let's begin with Hannah Berman. Oh, Hannah, I think, is not going
Yes,
to
she's
join
not.
us tonight. Correct. That's right. Angèle Dupré-Bouchard,
Here.
Ryan Slack,
Here.
David Knight,
Here.
Dieter Schindler,
Here.
Angela Anderson,
Here.
and Rick Stevens.
Here.
Okay, most of the A-team is present. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have our consent agenda, which consists of item 2A, the minutes from August 12th, 2025. We also have item 2B, resolution number 39, series of 2025, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving a license agreement granting Pathfinder Broadband a license to locate fiber in the town right-of-way. 2C, which is resolution number 40, series of 2025, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving a license agreement granting CenturyLink Communications a license to locate fiber in the town right-of-way. And then 2D, which is a letter to Pickens County seeking a letter of support for a grant application to Colorado Parks and Wildlife for the Roaring Fork Outdoor Coalition. One thing I did notice, Jeff, I'd like to pull off 2B and 2C. I didn't see the exhibits for those in the packet, so I don't think the rest of the council is.
They've been added. That was my fault. Yeah, so they've since been added onto the resolution on each of them. So
Was
if you
it
pull
like-
up again on the
Again?
web?
They were in the amended that was sent out, when was that, this morning or?
I didn't see him the mid-afternoon one when I pulled it down again.
I have it.
Yeah, just this afternoon, Harper had mentioned it, and so I went back online and made sure that they were on our basalt.net website.
I also have just a question on those
Yeah,
while we're
yeah.
talking about it.
Okay, yeah, just so you know. They
Isn't
are.
this somewhat like a wildcat thing? These guys are just like laying fiber and this seems like a different agreement, but from what I've seen around town and what we've talked about previously and the amount of sideways drilling I've seen in town is kind of like this. And I don't think there's a lot we can do about it, but I just wanted to understand just a little more with this on the
Sure.
consent.
This is to avoid that. And so as you may remember, the council adopted a few months ago, we put together right-of-way regulations. And part of those included that to protect the town's rights-of-way, in particular, streets that have been paved within the last 5 years, that there's a moratorium on any street cuts on those. So, and the town also owns and installed as part of the Midland project all of this conduit. And so a lot of the broadband companies want to deploy their own conduit to run fiber through and don't want to share with others. And so because we've placed this moratorium on street cuts, we have to make available to them the town's conduit. And so what this is to do is to grant a license to them to run fiber through town conduit to avoid street cuts and tearing up the streets. And so the license to use the conduit is free during that period for the initial term of the license agreement, basically because we've prevented them from deploying their own fiber and conduit in the streets, which they have the right to, otherwise would have the right to do under state law. And so that's kind of what this all relates to, is to try to avoid, I think wildcatting's probably the right word for it. Yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering, and I know we also have the same thing that if you are doing a road cut, you have to place conduit in it, and it's kind of like an additional
Right.
thing we've done before. So I was just kind of wondering where this falls. So is this just Midland conduit that we're talking about on this?
I
or is
guess
this-
maybe I'll ask Catherine, I forget for this, what scope they're wanting to deploy fiber in?
Yeah, both of these were for portions of Midland, so they're two different ISPs that want, or internet service providers that want to get in that infrastructure that we installed along Midland, which has the capacity for multiple users, and then also the town has its own conduit. But yeah, you're right. You're spot on, and that's why we did it. That's why we got grant money to do it as part of Midland and all that. Yeah.
Quick one here on the restoration part of this, when some of the ones that are on Midland Avenue, and it's probably in the revised right-of-way agreements, restoration sometimes falls quite a bit short from what they went through and dug up. And the shallow utility guys seem to be the most prone to even a debris field in their wake. So there's a spur lane that this one person keeps calling me all the time about that. You know, they removed half of an alley's asphalt and didn't put it back. So in the right-of-way world, hopefully that's addressed in what we revised a few months ago.
Yeah, there's certainly remediation provisions in the right-of-way regulations when there are street cuts or work in the right-of-way. I'm not familiar with exactly the situation you're talking about, but
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk with Catherine and Justin about what's going on.
Justin's went and looked at it. But just, you wonder where these guys come from. But,
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you still want to pull this, or?
No, I mean, I think this is pretty straightforward. It's in their packet now. We went in this afternoon, so you guys are good, I'm good.
My apologies, yeah. Harper pointed it out to me, so we re-upped it.
Thank you, Harper. Mayor, I approve that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have our call to the public, and just a reminder, limit your comments to 3 minutes and address your comments directly to me. Identify yourself by name and address when making comments, and also make sure you sign in at the back of the room. There's a sign-in sheet. Comments should be courteous, civil, and constructive, and town council will make no decision nor take action except to direct the town manager, which we'll do offline because he's not here. Anyway, I'll open it up for a call to the public. If anyone would like to come up, please.
And Austin Clapper, 11 Walter Road, Basalt. It's off of Hooks Lane. So I call it no man's land because I'm in Eagle County. But August 4th, well, backtrack. The beginning of the summer, the word out on the street was that you could park after 5 o'clock in the loading zone on Midland Avenue. We are very, very short of parking since all the angle parking was removed. I know you've heard this 100 times. And I certainly parked there along with other people. On the 4th, I happened to have a regular spot, and I noticed that there was an officer putting a ticket on a car in the median, and so I went over and asked him what the story was, and he said, "This says loading zone only. Nobody's supposed to park here." And I said, "Well, we've been parking here all summer and no one has said anything." And he was a little rude, let's say, but he said, "I'm sick and tired of this, and I'm now going to ticket everyone." And he did a bunch of tickets that night. I happened to be going to Heather's, and I alerted the musicians not to park there. There were a couple other people. I went out and said, "Don't park here, you're going to get a ticket." My feeling is that since people had been doing it for June, July, maybe even earlier than that, that there should have been some notice to the public. I think enough people read the newspapers, put in something in the newspapers that the policy is now going to be enforced instead of just handing out $40 tickets. And I think the people from August 4th, when he started giving them, until this notice goes out, should have received a warning. And I didn't get a ticket, but I'm here because I don't think it's fair not to have everybody assume that it was okay because it was the word on the street. So let's put the word out there that this is not acceptable and put warning notices on the car maybe for August or whatever until something's published, and excuse the tickets that have been issued. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you. We'll pass along the feedback to
Yeah.
to
And
Doug
I
about
know,
communication.
I talked to Scott Thompson. I know that he says there's a safety issue if they have to.
Yeah.
But it should also, if there's any way to make that feasible, it would be a good idea because it's really hard to park along there. And a lot of people, looking at Jim, are senior citizens. And especially in the winter, you know, for me to walk from clear down here at Midland to go up to Heather's to have dinner, especially in the winter. It's dark and icy and everything. It's a challenge. So, thank you.
Thank you. April has her hand up. Jim, did you want to come up as well?
I think we'll start. Sit here.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for your comments.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm April Long. I'm the Executive Director of the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition. I am here to provide you with a quick update on where we are with the mobile home park preservation effort that I think you all are very familiar with. One of the best bits of news is that the residents of both mobile home parks submitted an offer in early July, and that offer was accepted, and so they're now in the due diligence period and eventually the closing period on the purchase of those properties. They could not have done that without commitments from the local governments and our employer partners and our individual private donors. So thank you very much for all that you've done to help these mobile home parks remain affordable housing for our communities. I would also like to give you an update that our initial goal, or our goal all along, has been for $20 million in subsidy, and that amount is needed as essentially a grant or a gift to the purchase of these parks, because that is the amount that helps keep the lot rents affordable moving forward, or to a more affordable level. And we have raised $14 million so far towards that $20 million goal. A little over 11 million of that has come from the local governments in the Roaring Fork Valley. And then 1.5 million has come from Atlantic Aviation and Aspen Skiing Company. And then we've raised 1.4 million from some very generous donors in the community, with gifts ranging from $25,000 to 500,000. And so that's brought us up to this $14 million point. I am still pushing hard and pulling, putting together all the pieces and all the angles that I can to get the state to come in for funding, but it is a very difficult, very difficult financial situation with the state right now, and it's also just difficult to have things move very quickly. And so I am working to fill that gap with state funding, but in the meantime, we have a critical deadline of September 5th, essentially, as part of this due diligence period, where we need to show that we have at least 16 million in committed funds. in order to make the residents and the lender comfortable with what the lot rent rates would be moving forward. And so I am asking all of the partners, all of the local governments that have already contributed, plus our employer partners, Aspen, One, and Atlantic, to increase the amount that they have committed. And so that's what I wanted to talk with you all, or present to you all tonight, is the need to get to that $16 million goal by September 5th. And so I think that that's all that I have for right now, and I'll let Jim speak up as well.
Thank you, April.
Thanks, April.
The key numbers were $20 million goal, of which we were going to try to get 15 million locally. We're at 14. We think we're closing the gap to get to 15. But as April reported, we must get to 16. So we're changing. We're going back asking everybody who has contributed or who's in undecided to help us get to at least 16. And there'll be a parallel and subsequent effort to raise money to get the rent support for the tenants. So we may not get, that would help indirectly compensate until the state comes through. So this is a very friendly but urgent request to you all, as we are going back to everybody else who's participated.
Appreciate
Did I keep under 3 minutes?
You got time to spare.
Any questions?
You got 2 minutes. Let's
No.
fill this, dude.
Any questions?
Jim, have y'all done any numbers about like pro rata, what that would look like based on current commitments if you were to allocate the 2 million
If
difference?
everybody at $12.6 million put in 20%, that's another 2.5 million, and we would be, if everybody did pro rata. April is dealing with the other governments, and some are at their limits, I think, so it may not end up being pro rata.
April had that
But
first.
the point I'm making is just to reinforce the urgency of the commitments. If we'd had another month or another year, there's various other efforts. Rick's working on Basalt Area Gives. We're trying to get the grassroots efforts, other businesses. There are a lot of things I could describe that will be supplemental, but just won't come through in the next 2-3 weeks. So that's the urgent message that April's given, and I'm reinforcing.
Well, thank you for bringing that, both of you.
I thought that was brilliant, Angela, to say just everybody give another 20% and we're done, so.
I would do it.
But she's gonna tell you who can't give, so we're not gonna probably, she's talking to you all, not me. I'm talking to the others, but whatever you can do will help us get to the closing.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Last comment, if I would, we're setting some precedent here that, to me, that's very exciting. Rick would talk about it as social capital, but if we can have the governments, the private donors, the businesses all working together on a common cause, we can make some magic happen beyond this project. And we've talked to Michelle about other new projects, and Atlantic wants to participate and take a leadership position in other things. So we'll unleash something really powerful if we can get this done.
Yeah, that's a good point. If we can keep that momentum, I mean, we're getting a lot done together, so that's cool.
I stopped it, Jim. You did so good. I didn't want you to get time to go.
Mayor, if I may, I think I left some time on the table, and I have
Sure.
just one more thing to add. Okay,
Sure.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I also wanted to say, in addition to the fundraising efforts that we're doing, that Jim mentioned, that I'm doing with you all, we have 2 fundraising events coming up. One on September 22nd at Takaw, and one on October 3rd at the 3rd Street Center in Carbondale. The Basalt fundraising event will be for the benefit of the Aspen Basalt Mobile Home Park, and the 3rd Street Center event will be to the benefit of the Mountain Valley or Carbondale Mobile Home Park. The 2 events are the same formatting. We're going to show a really incredible film called A Decent Home that is about mobile home park residents in this situation. It's a national film, but it is a case study for a mobile home park in Colorado. It's really incredibly moving and better explains, what this process is like, why mobile home residency is so important. And we'll have a panel of speakers, including some of the residents of the parks, myself, those involved with this whole process and this fundraising effort. It'll be free to attend the event, but we are asking for donations for those that attend. And it's being hosted at Taka, and so we're also looking for sponsors. Those events are not free to host, and so we have received some small grants, but we need some additional funding, and so we're also looking for any sponsorships if the town of Basalt is interested in that, or if you know of sponsors that we could ask for, that would be super helpful as well. But please help us in spreading the word that the event at Taka is on September 22nd.
And what was the date for the Carbondale one?
The one in Carbondale is going to be October 3rd. That's First Fridays for Carbondale. And
Okay,
so
cool.
hoping everybody can hang out there and come by and see us.
Great.
Okay.
So you guys all got that, September 22nd in Taka, October 3rd at 3rd Street Center in Carbondale. Cool, thanks, April. Anyone else? I don't see anybody online.
Is there any way we could make one last push about that at the last Wednesday night concert? Yeah,
Yeah, maybe we can, yeah, for sure.
I would announce it.
just somebody to announce it and say, we're at this dollar amount, we're trying to get here, here's some ways you can contribute.
Yeah,
Local musician?
you're gonna have the mic, aren't you, Harper? No, that'd be really good.
Performing tomorrow?
I can
She
provide a
is, she's the
script.
opening act.
Yes.
Give you a written,
Go,
you
Harper.
can
Yeah,
read it off your phone.
we'd love that.
You can do it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
What do you not do, Harper? What's that? I said, what do you not do?
Awesome. All right, so moving on to item number 4, mayor and council reports, comments. You guys have anything?
I got a couple. Shout out to BEF, Basalt Education Foundation, put on an amazing event, Motors on Midland. I saw a lot of you guys there. It's just awesome to see Midland activated after a couple years hiatus, and just to see all the people in Basalt. I love the event, and I'm always encouraging them to do more. So I thought it was a great turnout, and appreciate it. And then I know I always mention it, but Matt at the rec department and also Matt at the pool, as the season's winding down, with all the kids going back to high school, they're still keeping that pool open, both lifeguarding, and it just speaks a lot that they're willing to let the pool stay open and sacrifice some of their time to come and keep it open. So just a huge appreciation. And then I know Justin has a lot of projects in my neighborhood, and I saw him they moved a bunch of river pigs, so I'm sure someone's happy about that. I don't know who, but he's on it, and I appreciate him and his team for taking the time to continue to help out the neighborhood. So
I've got a couple.
Go for it.
I attended a meeting, I guess I was volunteered for a committee that I didn't know I was on. But Monday afternoon, Chris organized a meeting with the EDIT? Tell me what that acronym is. Anyway, it's a group of consultants that Chris won a state grant for to
It's
finance.
OEDIT, the Office of Economic Development and International Trade, specifically Colorado Tourism Office, CTO.
Yeah, okay, so I attended that meeting, that's a mouthful, and it was really, really, really interesting. And I wanted to report out on it, and then I was surfing through my stuff in this little manila folder I keep, and I came across the local economy, a part of the strategic work plan. And it was a strategic discussion about what our local economy is looking like, where it's going, what do we identify as a community, how much tourism do we want, what's the balance on things like lodging tax, STRs, the whole gamut. And there's going to be continuing workshops as we go through, and I think November is kind of the time that we're going to see the results of all this work. But just going through the strategic work plan and reading a lot of local business discussion, a lot of strengthening partnerships with local businesses and the chamber and so on. Anyway, it says our existing businesses provide the foundation for Basalt's economy. We support responsible knowledge and ideas-based economic growth, encourage green technologies and well-paid jobs across sectors. And then there's action items. So I went through these. We've implemented time parking. We've improved cellular service in Willits. We've worked with regional partners to collaborate on broadband. We have created a designated historic, or recreating a historic district along Midland to look for opportunities for business owners. And the work objective was supporting a thriving arts and culture community, continue progress made on Basalt Summer Concert Series, include BPAC in the planning for Midland Avenue and other revitalization efforts, and look for opportunities to increase public art in town. So looking back on the last 8 months of this plan, we're 95% on the way or completed. And so there's a little bit of a shift, I think, that happened during this conversation. Okay, we've got a good foundation for this from the strategic plan that Basalt's community delivered. Where are we going next? Kind of conversation. And there's trends out there in the resort communities that are happening that are interesting. Second thing I wanted to talk about was just real quickly Basalt Gives. Basalt Gives is a organization that's completely informal. It's not a 501c3. It's just a simple connection to local business partners, friends. And to date, I've met with the Aspen Community Foundation. They're going to support our efforts. In fact, we talked a little bit about formalizing that a little bit, and there's a way to do that. And then I met with April, and she explained to me the same thing she explained to you guys. The fee for the event, we thought it was X, and it turns out it's a lot lower. So I think that's an easy thing to do, even if we don't get support here. And then on Friday, I think I'm going to meet with Michaela at the Basalt Education Foundation, talk through this, and then I'm hoping to tag the Basalt Chamber, and that'll be our third sort of community partner in going forward with Jim's proposal to look at rent subsidies or look at all this other stuff. So just so you know, I'm not out there wilding around. You'll see some things coming out. We're creating a refreshed website, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of fun to get involved in that. And you know, 200, 500, 50 cents, it all is a giving part of it, and we look forward to seeing how it goes. That's where we're at. Thanks.
Thanks, Rick. Anyone else?
Yeah, one other quick one. I'd like to thank Chris, she's here right now, Ryan Honey, who's here, Ben Baumfalk, Eagle County. Jeff Schroll, and Bill Kane, for helping us on Friday, and staff for putting together an amazing event for last Friday for our interview process for town manager. It means a lot to have these people take their time out of their day to come help us. And I thought it was a very well done event, and just we'll be dealing with it a little later in the agenda, but just wanted to.
Ryan Honey.
Oh, what?
Ryan Honey.
Oh yeah, I said Ryan Honey.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. How would I forget my other Ryan? It's my man.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sure.
Oh, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff too, but he's part of staff. He was paid. No, thank you for everyone who was there. I thought it was a very well executed event, and someone actually texted me about it, and I said, "Oh, it was awesome." And they were like, "Is someone watching you type this?" And I was like, "No, it was a really good event, and I was happy to be a part of it." So, just kudos to everyone that was there. It was really well done.
Thanks. Anybody else? The only thing I had there, we had a RAFTA meeting a couple weeks ago, and there's a zero fare program from October 1st through November 30th to try to boost ridership when the buses aren't as full, and also just to kind of gather some data about patterns and who might, what might happen if you have free fares. And that was funded by City of Aspen, the elected officials, Transportation Commission in Glenwood Springs, so that was cool. And then also separately, I mean, you've probably seen this too, Ryan, the rivers up to, bless you, up to 202 CFS below the dam, so they, a little more fish water this week, right? So you know about that, so, yeah, so that's going on in the water space, and that's all I've got. Is Doug on for an interim manager's report?
He is on.
Doug, we miss you.
Doug, can you hear us? If you'd like to speak, just mute, please.
Here we go. Can you hear me good? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, great. Yes, I can hear you. Yep. So I just have a few things on, actually one on the manager's report. Comment is the Midland parking. I had asked Chris Matera last week, or not a couple weeks ago, actually, to survey the Midland businesses to get their reaction to whether we should be continuing our parking enforcement and what their view of it was. So feedback as of last Friday, and I believe the survey is still open, is that there was 14 respondents, and 50% strongly agreed that the parking enforcement has been effective in improving parking availability. So 28% were neutral on that question. The strong majority were also in agreement, 78%, that the parking enforcement hours are appropriate for downtown. There was a split, 42% strongly agree or agreed that parking enforcement has had a positive impact on their businesses, whereas 35%, just the way they split, were neutral. So it still favored being favorable to their business. And then last was that there was a strong 71% strongly agreed that the town should renew its contract with the vendor. We have a contract is running through the end of the calendar year, and we'll, I think we're going to have that as a budget item for 2026 as an extension of that service for 2026. And then one thing that I'll just note, the open-ended comment was that there was a need for more enforcement at night for loading zone infractions and updating the signage for clear enforcement of days and hours. I mean, right now we don't specify it's from 9 to 5, a 2-hour period. But I know I spoke with Justin about that. We ordered some stickers and we're in the process of getting the signs marked that the enforcement would be 9 to 5. That's all I have.
Still there, Doug?
Yeah, he said that was all he has.
Oh, that's all you have.
Yeah.
Did you guys, I hope you could hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah. I just couldn't hear.
Okay.
I do have one question on the parking on the center from the comment and public comment from some business owners I've heard. And I guess since Aaron's here, is that, or have we determined that it has to be due to like emergency vehicle access? Because I know some business owners are, some business owners have talked to me about it and said, hey, we would really appreciate this if you guys didn't enforce it. I think from your guys as in the fire standpoint, that it is a problem. So I guess maybe just some clarification for everyone on that and what else we could do if there's signage and or, I don't know, just how to convey it to the people. It's just.
Yeah, we have had a couple instances here recently where even an ambulance had trouble turning, and it was after hours, so it did make it apparent that it's nice to have that area even open after hours, so
Okay.
even it just delayed their response for a medical call, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
It takes one.
And yeah, that's fine.
And I'd just say, Brian, I would just add to that, was that, we weren't, that citizen was correct, that we were not enforcing the loading zone until it was called to our attention that was a problem. Chris Matera had some comments coming to our office that was an issue. And so we began looking into that after hours, and there were other, so I think it's a split. There's people who want it, and then there's other people who don't. So It's probably a case where you're not going to get everybody happy about the answer. But the way the ordinance is written, there's no dispensation as to day and time. And it could always be changed, but that's what the ordinance is, how it's written.
Thanks, Doug. Anything else for Doug? Okay.
No, but we might want to add some extra signage in there. Not that we need more signs in town, but I don't know how to alert these people that they'll be ticketed if they park in, you know. We're kind of in a rock and a hard place. I'm sure you guys ticketing isn't also what you want to be doing at night either. So I don't know how we can get the message out, if we can talk to the restaurants or the, you know. I think the emergency thing is a good backup to why we're doing it, but how do we convey it to these people that don't want to listen?
I did put, just to let you know, I put the signage question on the list for Doug, just to like, let's do it, evaluate whether the signage is adequate and, and all that. So we can turn that stone over, make sure everybody feels good about what we have out there.
Just so I'm clear, was it allowed and then it's not allowed, or it's never been allowed?
Never been allowed.
It's never been allowed, but we weren't enforcing it.
Was it enforced?
It wasn't enforced after 5 because the parking contractor was enforcing it 9 to 5. So then, once it was called to PD's attention, PD's now out there writing tickets instead of the parking enforcement contractor.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the word on the street that it was cool wasn't right.
No, those stripes and
I saw the stripes myself.
the ones that say loading zone are
Okay, yeah.
they're for.
Well, I would recommend that the contractor be contacted and asked what the change order would involve to have them out there on Friday, Saturday nights from, 6:30 to 8:30, putting some information out there, but maybe not. But Chris shaking her head. It's really.
A lot of nights, it's not Monday. Mike, please.
No. Anyway, we talked about this a few weeks ago, and all of us agreed that it was kind of a nuisance that they were parking in the middle. Safety, emergency access, wasn't the intent of the plan of Midland Avenue Streetscapes to encourage that, and I think it just got away from us, and now we got to backpedal. We're going to go into fall leaf season, and a few other things are going to happen. Winter, if we allow that to happen, is going to be horrific. So we just have to stick with what our mission was on Midland Avenue, was to make it more pedestrian friendly, and those cars parking in the middle are not making it any more pedestrian friendly.
And the health and safety aspect of it, I think you got to enforce it.
I work late a lot, so I can attest and have pictures of Midland Ave at like 8 p.m. and you'll have sections where the loading zone's completely full and then the sides are completely open. And as somebody who does try to cross at night, it's scarier to cross because you can't see anything. So it is a safety issue in that respect as well. But it's not something just reserved to weekends. It's pretty much any night, especially in the summer season. I'm sure it'll die down in the winter, but it's a change, and I know people are going to get used to it, but over communicating might be helpful in this case, just so people are aware. Because what people do and what is right are two different things sometimes.
Well, don't take my comments wrong. I didn't mean parking enforcement, training with the guy out there. He doesn't have to write a ticket. He should just put a little note on the windshield saying, by the way, and there's a lot of able-bodied people that park in the middle of the street, so. It's kind of hilarious when you see a big old dually pickup parked there when the guy gets out.
Staff
So
can
if
work.
I need to recap anything Doug said, I have the email I sent him with graphs. So if you need clarification from the business community, happy to provide.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Staff could work with Mitzi Rapkin, who did the public outreach on the Midland project, to try and get the word out too. That'd probably be helpful.
And I know we have this sign right here, and it's the fire restriction. I don't know how many more things we can put in it. I don't know if they have it still there. Maybe we finally moved it.
Yeah.
But that sign, maybe we put up and say no parking in the loading zone. At least we have something going. And maybe in the paper wouldn't hurt either, just so we can say, hey, it's out there.
Doug, we can talk more offline and give you guys a chance to think about it. All right, let's move on to council actions. Item 6A is public hearing and second reading ordinance number 10, series of 2025, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving the First Amendment to the Declaration of Covenants concerning occupancy and resale lots for lots 15, 16, 20, and 21, Stotts Mills subdivision, PUD, Basalt, Colorado. James and Jeff.
Thank you. Staff would recommend considering these next two items together as they are related, as council did at the last meeting. As the mayor noted, the first item is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance that would approve of amendments to the Declaration of Covenants for the 4 lots that the town owns in Stotts Mill. And then the second item is consideration of a resolution that would approve of a policy for administering the rental or sale of the Stotts Mill duplex units that the town owns. As was discussed at the last meeting, the background is that the Stotts Mill developer was required to deed restrict 4 of the lots with discounted prices, and the town chose to purchase all 4 of those lots and to construct 2 duplexes. 1 duplex is just completed, and then the town is in the planning phase of construction of the second duplex. And so the lots included a Category 2 deed restriction, and so the draft ordinance would amend the deed restriction to remove the Category 2 restriction for town employees, so that town manager and department heads that are above the Category 2 income range would be able to occupy the units, and that would help the town in maintaining and recruiting employees. And so under the amendments that are proposed with the ordinance, the town could sell the units to non-town employees, but they would still have to meet the Category 2, but there would be a buyback provision so that the town, if the town sold the units, the town would have the ability to buy the units back. Regarding the resolution that is also being considered, sets up a policy for administering the sale or rental of these 4 units. The town does currently have a policy for administering town-owned unit rentals, but we don't have a policy on town-owned unit sale units. The proposed policy is generally based on the town's town-owned unit policy, as well as the community housing guidelines. And it was noted at the last meeting, this is a drafting effort between the staff, planning staff, and the town attorney's office. The proposed policy allows for the sale and rental to town employees to not satisfy the category income requirements, which this is consistent with the current town-owned unit policy, and that gives the flexibility to the town for attracting and maintaining staff. Also, this policy sets up priority system for internally for the for sale scenario, in which town employees would have a priority system, which would have the town manager get priority and department heads would have a second priority, and then it would waterfall down to other employees. Also, as I noted, the policy indicates that if the town were to choose to sell the units, that it provides a town employee would have to resell it to the town, and that if they ceased being a town employee, that they would have to also sell it back to the town. There were a couple questions that came up at the last meeting. There was a question about the level of insurance that would need to be maintained on the units. Staff did some research, and we've added some language to the policy that requires that the unit owner, if the town chose to sell the units, would have to maintain a full coverage for the replacement cost of the unit. And then there were other questions about the funds for buying back the units in the future and whether those could be tracked through the town's budget. And we've included language in the draft resolution that indicates that the funds, when we sell the units, that we would track where those funds are and basically keep them as a line item in the budget to be able to purchase the units back in the future if the employees were to sell them. And then there's been one additional adjustment. There was discussion at the last meeting about the amount of time that an employee would have to resell the units back to the town, or if they were renting the units to be able to get out of the unit if they terminated their employment. And per the council's direction at the last meeting, that's been changed to a 60-day on the rentals and then 120 days on the for sale scenario. So staff would suggest taking public comment because it is a continued public hearing, providing council discussion, and if you're comfortable, you could consider motions on both these actions.
Thanks, James. I will go ahead and open the public hearing. And I don't see anybody in the room. Is there anyone online? No.
Doesn't look like it.
So I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Questions do you guys have or comments?
My only question and concern would be totally for sale to an employee. I feel like if we sell outside the employment, if we sell outside to a Basalt employee, the likely turnover of that unit is nil. And so I don't know if we're allowed to limit it to only for sale for a Basalt Town employee. And then if it doesn't sell to the Basalt Town employee, yes, of course we're gonna rent it. But I don't want, to me, these were always for us to recruit awesome employees for the town of Basalt. And I feel like if you put it in this general for sale pool, granted it's still category 2, it's helping our cause. I just think that should just remain a rental, and we should have that flexibility to know that, I don't know, I just think you lock it up in an outside Basalt, and now we're in this whole, now we built something for someone that isn't, they're helping Basalt, but they're not helping Basalt in the way.
I agree. But just to clarify, do you want to just go ahead and respond and
Sure.
I'll ask a dark question.
Jeff, you might help.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the unit is sold to a town employee leaves, town buys it back, you go through the waterfall, there's not a town employee there to sell it to. And so it could be sold at a category 2 to, someone qualifying for that. The town could still decide at that point not to sell it. They'd have, because you'd have to approve, a purchase agreement, and you could direct staff to rent it instead and keep it in the rental pool instead of selling it.
We've built that in as a town council action in the draft policy.
Okay. I guess to me, I would rather just cement it now as these are for sale for Basalt town employees. That's the benefit that you have for working for our town. Is we've built these units to help sell to you.
Yeah.
And I think limiting it at the start and not relying on another council down the road that, I don't know, they might have a friend that could qualify and I
agree, but I don't think we can prevent a future council from selling.
Yeah, they could always change this back too, so,
I think
but I would rather have
it's
that
worth the
language up
effort right
front.
now, though.
Yeah.
They can change anything, but,
Yeah.
the intent, should protect it now, and if they want to change it, then
Yeah.
that'll be their discretion.
And and just have it, if we don't sell it, it goes into the category 2 rental pool, and that's, so be it.
And I think you could potentially do that with the policy.
Okay.
The actual amendments to the covenants and the deed restriction, staff felt that we really needed to keep the language in there about the ability to sell it at a category 2 level to a non-town employee to kind of keep the justification restriction.
Yeah. On the deed restriction itself, that can't be eliminated. We're kind of building into the deed restriction the room that while the town owns the units, this is how they're going to be controlled. because that deed restriction was part of the land use approval, and the town can't unilaterally basically eliminate the category 2 restriction if it were to be sold to third-party buyers. But you're right, if in the policy, it could say that, in the event we get through the town employee categories, and there's no one interested in it, if we're going down a for sale path and after these 3 priorities, there's not a purchaser, the town will pursue renting instead of selling. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I just want to voice that I feel strongly of what these units were made for.
Yeah, they're not meant to be just sold.
Yeah, I don't want to just put them, because then the town doesn't have any whole structure of it, so.
Sure.
So then would the unit be off of the market for sale as long as somebody's renting it, or
Yeah.
Yeah,
if somebody came into the town, to work for the town that was interested in buying it, would they have an option because it really is a for sale unit, or?
The town's the owner, so there's kind of flexibility as to which path you want to go down. And James, I don't know if you see this playing out like in reality, a little bit differently, but I mean, I think after a sale, and if the town were then to buy back, I think you're at a decision point again of council, do you want to put this for rent or for sale? And it wouldn't be just this automatic thing. It'd be after that buyback, there'd be a revisit of the decision of kind of which path to go down. And so then if the direction is, well, we'd like to sell see if there's interest in other employees purchasing the unit, and there's not, then there can be that decision to rent it. But
I would agree, that's kind of what we were thinking in terms of every time it becomes available again, it's a council action as to whether you want to rent it or sell it, try to sell it.
I guess to Angela's point though, if it is rented, what does the tenant, like, we have a lease agreement on the rental, whether it's to an employee or a non-employee. Let's say this hypothetical is it's a non-employee, and we are out hiring a new employee.
yeah.
What power do we have on that, besides obviously a lease agreement? We can't just terminate the lease agreement, but as that lease agreement comes to its year, do we have the right then to say, hey, as the owner of this, we now have an employee that is interested in this, and we can cancel their lease? I mean, I know that's not fair.
When the leases end, we would just simply not renew.
Yeah, I know, and there's a lot of stuff in Colorado right now.
It's a good question, and I know there was some recent, in the last year or two, some legislation to protect tenants on non-renewal situations, which I'd have to look into to better answer your question. Yeah.
But on renewal situations, we would have the ability to shift around if we needed to, on renewals.
You don't have to re-up a lease.
Yeah, well, state of Colorado's having some other statements, so.
Yeah, I'm a landlord, I'm not aware of anything.
They're not beneficial for you.
So it sounds to me like the second reading part can be hammered out smooth, but there's question on the resolution. Is that where we're at, and it needs to be reshaped or reconfigured, or?
I think so.
I'm fine with it. I mean, I would like to say, yes, let's keep it for sale, but like they said, I mean, any council beyond us can decide differently, so I think we're headed in the right direction. I just think it's always going to be a council discretion, so.
Do you want to take one more review of the policy between now and the next meeting, or do you think we have it there?
Well, I wonder if council would be comfortable with a motion on the resolution that basically, as Ryan kind of indicated, that if sorry, excuse me, if the town council chose to sell the unit and then somebody wanted to resell it, then the town has the ability to either try to sell it to a town employee or rent it, but not to sell it outside the town's ranks. But the actual ordinance, we kind of think needs to stay as is with the deed restriction to give the justification for the current requirements.
I mean, if we bought it back, then we wouldn't have to resell it. Like,
you wouldn't. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be the same thing, so.
Yeah.
No matter what. The council's gonna make the discretion, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, there was discussion about that so that there would be reserve capacity, so that if the person bought it for the category 2 price, we'd buy it back for the category 2 price at a 3%, whatever the rate of increase was, so we'd have that on the books in the event we needed it, whether it was reserves or some kind of restricted fund. And then I'm kind of with Ryan, you know, if you get somebody in there from outside the town and they change, you know, we need to unit, or if we have an employee that changes jobs and needs some time to get out of there, is there 90 days to, you know, just something, that's a policy I guess you could figure out later.
Yeah.
So can we do, so can I make a motion on 6A and we just clean that up, it's off the table as what it is, and then the 6B would be the one where we need to tweak the language to be inclusive of, that it needs to go back to the town.
I think
And
that's
the town
already
has the
in
right
there.
to sell or rent.
It always goes back to the town no
Yeah.
matter what.
Right.
It doesn't go like on the open market. The town's buying it back regardless. It's just the question of, can we sell it outside of the town? Like, can we sell it outside of a town employee? But that's the discretion of the council no matter what.
I think if you approve it, the ordinance is based on our discussion, I think can be approved without amendment.
Okay.
The resolution, I think, can be approved, but I think on the condition, and I think it'd be worth just taking a look to see if we need to include any clarifying language about those town council decision points.
All right, so Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 10, series of 2025 on second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Okay, let's begin with Rick Stevens,
Yes.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so now this one we take a second swing on. So this would be
Item
include the
6B.
language or
6B is continued resolution number 38, series of 2025. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving the administrative policy regarding the rental and sale of the town-owned Stotts Mill duplex units on lots 15, 16, 20, and 21 of the Stotts Mill subdivision PUD. James and Jeff. So, I mean, I don't know if do you need to present again, or can we just make the motion?
I mean, I tried to incorporate in the presentation both items, included a description. I think the question is whether council wants to adjust the language related to allowing for non-town employees not to be permitted to purchase the units, or whether you're comfortable with the language that says it always comes back to town council when there's a decision to rent or sell the unit.
Yeah, I think based on the discussion, there could be a motion to approve the resolution, and I think we just wanted to ensure that there was clarity in the policy that prior to any sale, that upon the unit not being able to be sold to a town employee, that the town pursue renting the unit instead of a sale to a non-employee.
Renting would be to anybody at that point.
And so,
Be in the water.
what I
I'm gonna tee it up.
I think you could say so moved based on what I said, and then James and I can do the fine tuning in the language if needed.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. Sorry to make that confusing.
That's right. It's a good clarification.
All right. 6C is public hearing and second reading ordinance number 11, series of 2025, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, referring to the registered electors of the Town of Basalt at the coordinated election to be held on November 4th, 2025, a ballot issue to increase the lodging tax by 4%, setting the ballot title and content for the ballot issue, and providing other matters relating to the election. And this is Jeff and Bill. I saw you online.
Great. This is a second reading of the ordinance to refer ballot question to voters to increase the lodging tax, to propose increasing the lodging tax from 4% to 8%. Again, the town's existing lodging tax is 4%, generates about $500,000 in revenue per year. That is restricted revenue. The proposed tax increase would be used for a variety of affordable housing purposes. Since first reading, the ballot question was amended. I've highlighted in the packet the areas of amendment, which were mainly just to clarify the more specific uses of tax revenues for affordable housing purposes. These were word changes largely suggested by Bill and kind of I think, allow the question to read a little bit better. The second addition was under Tabor, for any tax increase, the ballot question is required to estimate the annual revenue from the first full year of the tax, and that acts as a limit on the amount of tax you can receive. So if you were to receive more than that, you would have to refund the tax. There's kind of always a balancing act of, do you put the number so high in which it's potentially scares the voters, or is it too low in which you might have to refund money if you over collect in that first year? Based on a history of getting about $500,000 from the existing 4% tax, the proposal is to include $600 just to provide a little bit of wiggle room and not be too scary of a number. I think Bill might have a few. I know Bill's on the line, I think lurking in the dark there, and might have a few additional comments.
No, I think that's right on, Jeff, that I think that's a good number to set, realistic number, and I think voters will be pretty responsive to that.
I'll just add two more things. One is that if the council approves the ordinance and refers the ballot question, submits a ballot question to the voters, from this point forward, the Colorado Fair Campaign Practices Act will kick in, and so the council's restricted from campaign activities. Basically, the town is restricted from spending money on campaigning for the issue. Council is permitted to adopt a resolution in support of any ballot question, so that's something that the council could do in the future. And the council is also permitted to have an informational page that's kind of balanced on the question that's put out there. But I did want to remind council of that. And then, I guess lastly, this is a public hearing, and so if we should open the public hearing if there is anyone here to make public comment.
So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. If anyone would like to come up and speak, they're welcome to do so. Looks like Chris is coming up. Just a reminder, make sure you sign in and 3 minutes and all this.
Chris Matera, President and CEO, Basalt Chamber of Commerce.
You speak up just a little.
Sorry. Chris Matera, President and CEO, Basalt Chamber of Commerce. I live in Carbondale, but work here in Basalt. My one comment, and I know I was on vacation, so I ended up having to watch the recording of the meeting from the first reading of this. It did seem like council had a lot of questions, and I just wanted to point out from a process standpoint, the chamber has not been involved, and we are the destination management organization for the town. And in looking through the packet, all of the information tied to this lodging tax question is purely about affordable housing. Now, I will say, first and foremost, we all recognize that affordable housing is a problem. It is the top concern of our members. So this is by no way a commentary saying we are against affordable housing. I want to go on the record. We understand that every tool in the toolbox needs to be leveraged. We're just asking for more thoughtful public engagement and stakeholder feedback before moving forward with this, because there may be some unintended consequences. And I know Eagle County, and Bill Ray's been involved with that one, are struggling with that as well. They had their discussion earlier today. They're tabling it until September 2nd, I believe, that meeting, and they have until September 5th to solidify it. So you're kind of in a bit of game of cat and mouse right now, where they're trying to decide if they're going to raise theirs, and they're actually backing out of affordable housing as a usage per today's discussion. No guarantee if that's where they go next week, but there's a lot of moving parts, so I'm just asking if council would provide the opportunity to at least sit down, maybe do a work session with the chamber or work with staff as well as some of our lodging partners to better understand what the impact of this lodging tax would be, fully recognizing that there needs to be funds identified and brought together for affordable housing purposes.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? I think so in the room, and I don't see anybody online once again. So I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and open it up for comments. Questions? Who wants to go first?
I still think doubling it's too much, but I know I'm going to lose in that battle. So I wonder the undue burdens that we are presenting to people that we want to come support our town and support our local businesses. And I think we might be undermining some of the economic prosperity or the economic impact that these guests are bringing to our town. And I know we're on a tight timeline because of the way the ballot measure has to be submitted, so we don't really have time to discuss anything of doing this or not. So I feel, I thank you for bringing that to our attention, and I don't know, I think doubling it to 8%, I think 8% adds, you know, I know it's only $16 on a $200 hotel room, or, you know, it just seems to add up for me, and I just wonder if there is some type of demand that we will be taking away from.
Yeah, I think doubling it is too much. I would rather, this isn't a resolution that we can experiment with. We can't really dial this back once it's voted in. It would be very difficult. I wouldn't even know what that would look like. So it's not, yeah, I mean, for that reason, I just would rather slow down. And if we miss out on 1 year of, you know, $250,000, $500,000, but we get it right next year because we've seen what Eagle County ends up doing, and we've had more time to actually engage the community that'll be affected by this and look at what's happening in the macroeconomic, you know, winds of our nation. And I would rather do that. I'd rather slow down and get it right than make a hasty decision. And I think 4% increase is too much. I could get behind 2% increase, but I still think that this is very hasty. Do I want to raise money for affordable housing? Absolutely, 100%. But I just think that we owe it to ourselves and our community. We are a tourism-based community. I don't want to make hasty decisions that might affect even just how we are perceived. I do have concerns that us doing this sends a message that we don't want the tourists here, and that's not the case. Our economy is dependent upon it. So that's where I stand on it.
Thank you.
I agree that I would have liked to have heard more from the community of business owners that will be impacted. I think about their businesses and what that would mean to double the lodging tax, and would people decide not to come? Yeah, it feels like it's a tricky time to make a decision like this, just considering that things feel up in the air, tourism is down. I think I was just reading an article about, was it Beaver Creek? No, not Beaver Creek. Breckenridge. They had maybe the worst tourism July they've ever had. They're not even going to use it to forecast for future years. So I could be persuaded that doubling it is too much right now.
I think, you know, I think that it's interesting because the lodging through the valley is a very sort of symbiotic relationship between what's in Aspen, Snowmass, Basalt. And I think 4% is probably too much to add. I think 2% seems more reasonable, but I really feel like maybe tapping the brakes on this one is the best call to seek out more engagement. I think we could push it through, but it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like we've done our due diligence. It feels like we are, running a, sorry for the reference, a 2-minute drill here where we're trying to get this thing done in time. And when you do that, maybe there are no unintended consequences. Maybe there are. You don't know, but you certainly. It feels to me like we operate a little bit more loosely than we would if we really were to try to march this down in an appropriate manner and get to this. Maybe it's getting to the same conclusion. That could be entirely possible, but I think the haste. It just doesn't. It doesn't play well. Visually, I don't think if you're a business owner around here, I would be happy about that.
Yeah, and I think that's what I struggle with, Dieter. Like, Bill Ray's, surveys show that, like, we may have voter support for this, but just because the voters support it because they know that they're not going to be the ones paying for it or suffering the consequences of it doesn't make it the right thing to do, because I really believe that the business owners and that community, the lodging community, are such an important part of our community and our economy, even if they aren't the voters, that I think we owe it to them to suss this out a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised on this. I mean, I think 2% is way more palatable, and it goes hand in hand. I think we're struggling with a couple things. We've asked staff to give us all the tools in the toolbox, and now we're taking one of the tools that they gave us and then saying absolutely not. But I just think that doubling it to 4%, I think, is aggressive. I think putting it at 6% isn't crazy. I don't think 2% more is as effective. And I think in reality, no one's going to be like, oh my gosh, did you see Basalt has an 8% lodging tax? We're definitely not staying there, but it could be a slippery slope, and it could affect people. I think if we do want to pursue this, I think a 2% is reasonable. It's within our tools. It is going to get to our greater goal. I don't know.
So I'd like, obviously I'd like the full 4%. I don't think $8 on a $200 hotel room is too much to ask or will have any meaningful impact whatsoever on demand for lodging or people coming to visit our valley. I believe that our voters, who we are accountable for, full stop, have spoken pretty resoundingly. And I think this is something that we talked about for quite a while. We've had surveys. I don't think it's rushed at all. I don't think that's a fair characterization of this process whatsoever, frankly. But if it's the wish of the rest of the council to do 6%, additional 2%, so an additional $4 per $200 hotel room, or that would be $10 for a $500 hotel room, which is, again, I mean, that's like a couple Red Bulls or whatever. I mean, like
me? How dare you? I drink Monster.
Let's go ahead and do it. I mean, but I think we do. If you guys want to do that, we do need to fix the Tabor limit. Jeff will probably say that.
If council's interested in submitting the question at 2% instead of 4%, you could recommend a motion to approve the ordinance on second reading with the amendment that 4% be changed to 2% and the revenue estimate be amended to $300,000.
Yeah, so far Angela, Angel, and Dieter were pushing it off. And I've been pushing it off since we started the conversation, because I think it's a little premature, and maybe there's been a lot of time invested in it. But the other thing I looked at was the 2% in 2004 and the 2% in 2014. One's 21 years old, and it's the use of that revenue isn't even really applicable right now to our priority of affordable housing. And the 500,000, it includes the 2014. There was some wording in there about a 10-year term, and then it could be used in the Basalt area or some kind of interesting language. And I think that when you look at the 500K, there's 125 that goes towards parks and open space maintenance, which I don't see that we need to do that any longer. We have $3 million a year coming in post funds. So my hang up is the first 4%, having time to figure out that, because that has to go back to the voters. And then the 2% is fine. I have no problem with that. And if there's something we can build into the discussion or system or decision-making process going forward to the budget calendar, then it needs to be relooked at, like a lot of restricted funds need to be looked at, and to see if we want to ask a question about reallocating. And maybe we can already do that, because in the 2014 resolution, there was some language about this, in the initial 2%, I think was for capital, if a hotel came into town and was going to develop.
For the first 10 years, and that's, yeah.
So, hit and pause or 2%, as long as there's something in there that we can allow council to look at down the road and potentially reallocate the $500,000. There's 250 for events in that $500,000, 250,000. And, whether that should be funded out of lodging or should be funded out of a different line item for the local economy, and this is also something that this group that's formed right now will be debating regionally with all the resort communities, is how I understand that. They're going to come back as the community of businesses, the community of tourist industry and so on, hospitality, and say, here's where we think you need to go. And I think I understand there's a little bit of a rate war going on now between the Hoffman and the hotels in Glenwood. So there is some competition to attract more business. So we're kind of, it's a vote.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need to completely push it. Again, I just wanted more of a compromise. If the other counselors feel strongly about going forward with this, I'd be comfortable with the 2% increase, not more than that. But I could go either way. Could kick the can the whole way down the road, or just lower it.
And I'd be willing to compromise on the 2% as well,
Just have a question, just because Chris pointed out that there hasn't been any communication from the town about the tax, with the chamber, and I just wonder, hearing it from her that way, I think, well, absolutely, we should have been in communication, right? Because that's an important part of the local business economy. And so where is that conversation supposed to be started? Like, who's supposed to be communicating with the chamber? Or are we supposed to? Like, where is that collaboration supposed to come from? Because I see them as an important part of this conversation.
I mean, it's been published in the paper. I mean, there's nobody here tonight. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
They don't feel that strongly about it. Except for Chris.
I think there's a problem too, in that, realistically, we have 3 lodges in town that are going to be affected by this, and then a bunch of short-term renters. And so, once again, we're only affecting so many people. But if the effect is turning off visitors, I think that's a problem. I think 2% is very palatable, and I think that also allows us, should this be successful and we want to raise it, the next council wants to raise it again, they can, and they could also put in different language, and there's,
Exactly.
and I agree with what Rick's saying too. I think we should analyze some of, Rick's been beating the drum on this, and I think there is something to be said about some of our restricted funds, and do they still need to be in the restriction they are, and what are the steps to free them up for other projects, or
What's the opportunity cost?
Yeah, what's the opportunity that we could do with some of these other funds, and could we change some of the language, and is that a voter thing too, so?
Well, budget season's coming up, so, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no,
that's the
it's-
place that, if you want to take.
I
take
totally
axe
agree.
to something, that's the place to do it.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion. Mayor, I move the town council adopt ordinance number 11, series of 2025 on second reading, adjusting the language to 2% increase, which would also adjust the Tabor amount to $300,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Okay, let's begin with Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens,
Yes.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes.
David Knight.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
All right, well, this is a
Thanks,
good
Bill.
one coming up. Yeah, thanks, Bill. Have a good night. Next item up, we have item 6D, resolution number 41, series of 2025. A resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, appointing Gloria Cashberger as town manager and approving an employment agreement. Jeff and Doug.
Yeah, council, as you know, since Ryan resigned, the town embarked on a town manager search process using KRW as the recruiter. The town got, I believe, 67 applicants for the position. There was initial review and reduced that to a number of semifinalists, and then ultimately council announced the 4 finalists for the position several weeks ago, and then had interviews with those finalists. And after those interviews, the council provided direction to pursue negotiating an agreement with Gloria Cashberger. And as the candidate that emerged from that finalist pool, and Gloria is online and happy to report that she was happy to accept the appointment as the town manager for Basalt. And there is a form of an employment agreement. This resolution would appoint Gloria as the town manager and approve an employment agreement with her. An employment agreement is consistent with the direction that the council provided, and so the details of her compensation and so forth are set out in the agreement in the packet. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, welcome, Gloria. I think I saw you online a minute ago. Oh, here you are. Good to see you again.
Thank you. It's pretty dark right now.
You got power outage? What's going on?
Silverton.
It's power in Silverton.
Upgrade you from the lamps.
We're really excited to have you, and yeah, this is great. This is a big milestone for all of us, and I want to just thank everybody who's been a part of this. You know, the rest of council, KRW, Doug, Jeff, Jenny. Who else? I mean, everybody's like been really leaning in and making this. Justin doing a tour, which I heard was really good. You know, so everybody's I think had a part in this in some way, shape, or form. And you know, it's really exciting to get to this point, and we're excited for you to move up. We'll see you later this fall.
Well, thank you. I just want to thank the council and staff for the whole interview process, and I'm really elated to join your community.
Moving to the big city.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
excited.
we're gonna have actual lights.
What is your expected arrival?
17th. Sadly.
When?
When?
November 17th is what it
Gloria's
says
start
on
date
the, is the start date.
17th.
Yeah, I appreciate the flexibility on my start date so that I can leave my current community with some closure and getting them through their budget process. So I appreciate that.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 41, series of 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All All right, well, it's
Welcome,
official.
Gloria.
Welcome, Gloria. Glad you're coming.
Tell your husband to wax his skis up.
Hopefully we have snow.
I will,
by
I
then.
just got my pass.
Getting close anyway. All right.
Thank
So-
you.
All right, next up, we have presentations. So 7A post 2020, post 2026 draft work plan and budget requests with Carlton and Michelle.
Just have me this evening. Good evening, everybody. So we'll start with kind of an overview. In 2024, town staff, with the support of 110% and High Country Consulting, conducted a study of the town's assets and related to parks, trails, and open space. And set out some long-range capital projections for what maintenance of those assets would look like. So starting off here, I'll just do a quick rundown, kind of where we are looking into 2026, and then we'll take a step back, take a bigger picture, some of our 2025 accomplishments, and also what the work plan will look like for staff moving into 2026. Next slide. So just two quick slides here referencing that asset management plan. So this was a slide from last year acknowledging some of the completed projects, and that next steps moving forward would include data-informed decisions to prioritize our expenditures and best identify where our assets need to be maintained. Next slide. So the asset management plan identified our assets as poor, fair, good, or very good, with this set of 5 conditions kind of addressing how we would get to those designations. Addressing public health and safety, improving access and compliance with the ADA, advancing environmental sustainability practices, sustaining or maintaining ROI and enhancing resident and customer satisfaction and service, and extending the life of existing assets and ensuring safe and operable condition. Slide. So the process that we've gone through here is reviewing the conditions assessment. This began at the end of the spring, towards the beginning of my tenure, prioritizing the projects based on the asset management plan, so that as identifying the poor condition projects. Because we're pretty early on, this just being the second year of rolling out this process, we are hoping to address as many of the poor condition assets and amenities, and identifying those poor condition projects to be addressed this year and next. Moving forward, we'll move into the fair condition projects, and then also start to upgrade some of the good and very good amenities and assets, to the point where moving forward, we're really just doing standard level maintenance, hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years here. Some ongoing capital projects that I'll mention a couple times this evening include the Willits Lane Connectivity Plan, which I know you guys are familiar with, the Willits Lane and CDOT boat ramp project, as well as Durox Park improvements. Those are both somewhat peripheral to the Willits Lane improvements, and the Safe Routes to School grant that we were awarded, which will be rolled out alongside Confluence Park improvements, and the improvements to the Basalt Avenue and Two Rivers Road intersection. And then the final step is kind of where we're coming to you tonight, which is to compile a project list and present ahead of the budget ask for post for the 2026 budget. So beginning here, our high priority parks as identified by the asset management plan include Cliffs Hillside, Durox Park, and Midland Park. So moving into Cliffs Hillside Park, we've already begun planning for improvements to this park through outreach. That's the current stage that we're in. Actually, last week, our communications consultant, Mitzi Rabkin, and I went and did an in-person outreach event at Cliffs Hillside, as well as there's an online survey that's currently active. I encourage everybody who uses that park to fill out regarding their vision for what that park might look like when we get around to renovating next summer. Some improvements suggested from the asset management plan include an improvement to the split rail fence, the removal of the playground. That is a required improvement per our insurance. That's kind of the impetus for this improvement project. Hopefully it'll include a new play structure and amenity, the scope of which is hoping to kind of come out of this outreach. Potential adjustments to the site grading and upgrades to the irrigation replacement. The initial estimated cost adjusted for 2026 pricing from the asset management plan was about 68 or just under $69,000. The likely estimated cost of that will be significantly higher should we replace the play structure with a comparable play structure. The budget request is kind of currently where we are right now, with an RFP to go out in January of next year, and the anticipated timeline to be demolition in the spring and installation late spring or early summer.
Okay, one quick one on this.
Yep.
I would highly encourage you to go reach out to Growing Years and any of the other daycares in town, because they are some of the #1 users of that park.
Thank
They
you, I
like to
appreciate
walk
that.
up there and maybe putting just a sign up in the neighborhood of,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
there's
if there's a Let's Talk Basalt or
QR
like,
code or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've already done that. I haven't been by it, but I know those daycares are always walking up there. It's a great little loop for them, and so it's a good call out.
I appreciate that. And I didn't start with this, but this is pretty informal. So if you guys have questions, just feel free to ask as they come up. Next park to discuss here is Midland Park. This one's kind of interesting. We're currently underway with improvements to the boardwalks. We have a signed contract with Independence Construction Group for improvements to the handrails and tow rails. In conversation with them, they also suggested replacement to the slatting across the walking portion of the boardwalks. And we've received a contract proposal from them amending that initial proposal. Further updates to come on that. The hope is for those boardwalks to be improved Q3 or Q4 of this year. We've also reached out to the initial artist for the Spirit Nest to conduct some maintenance that's been withheld on that for the last few years. And in lieu of being able to contact the artist, we've engaged in some discussions with Skico, who has a similar art exhibit, and have found we've been put in contact with the folks who have been maintaining that. They have also failed to get in contact with the original artist. So updates to come on Midland Park as well. Long story short on this one is hopefully most of the improvements, particularly the boardwalk infrastructure improvements, will be completed this year. Next one is Durox Park. Durox Park is currently under contract for engineered design. The main improvements here will include improvement of the boat ramp, which is currently used for both recreationalists and commercial activity. The hope is for this to become just a recreationalist's use at this park. Improvements will also include grading improvements and engineered improvements to improve the shoreline and control of erosion in the area. Vegetation mitigation and similar landscape improvements following the shoreline and erosion control improvements are set to occur as well. Other improvements include replacement of the picnic table and establishment of a crusher fines path. The estimated cost of work here is a little over $100,000, with some potential high and low adjustments following the design process. The timeline for this would likely be construction beginning middle of next summer.
Carlton, did we ever start charging a fee or a permit fee for people to use that put in there? Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry.
Not to my knowledge.
No, is that something that we've discussed, right, in the past?
Not the outfitters aren't paying?
We don't have a permit fee for rafting outfitters. It has been discussed in the past, but never instituted.
But didn't you say you're gonna intend to use this for recreational only, not for commercial?
Correct. Currently, it's used for both.
So how would you do that? Just curious. Like, what's the plan?
You're saying for permit fees?
No, for commercial.
For commercial, so a little bit later, we'll talk about the CDOT boat ramp improvement. We've currently engaged in, I believe it's considered a license agreement with CDOT to use their existing boat ramp off of Willets Lane a little bit further to the northeast, and I'll cover that.
Okay.
But the hope would be for then commercial users to just use that put-in.
Okay.
Should council have a will to engage in some kind of permit fee there, they could direct staff to investigate that, but there's plenty of precedents in other communities for charging permit fees. But yes, the intention would be for Durox Park to just be for recreational use. Next would be Ponderosa Park. This is a smaller level of improvement. And improvements would include new wood chips or resurfacing at the music amenity, a new crusher fines surfacing, and staining of the fence that exists there. Estimated cost of these improvements would be just under $12,000. Potential adjustments to that would be higher quality surfacing, such as poured in place around the musical amenity. The hope here, as well as with some of these fair projects, is to kind of round out our work plan for next year while addressing some of the higher visibility areas in town. Moving into just kind of a higher level recap of some of the big capital projects. I've mentioned all three of these so far, but where we are on all of these, just bringing everybody up to speed. For the Willets Lane connectivity plan, the phase 1 RFP for construction documents closed, I should say, on the 21st of this month. Those phase 1 improvements include crossing improvements such as rapid flashing beacons, raised crosswalks, and improvements to the drainage on Willets Lane. Wayfinding, signage, fabrication, and installation will be also included as a part of phase 1, and pursuit of the bicycle-friendly community certification. There's an opportunity here to utilize the RAFTA and Mid-Valley Trails funds, as have been mentioned several times throughout the summer. I'll touch on that a little bit later as well. The hope is for installation to begin in spring of 2026. Durox Park, as mentioned, was in schematic design. We just talked about that at length. Again, happy to answer any questions on Durox Park. And then the Willets Lane river access, this being the CDOT project, is also in schematic design with CDs to come out later this year. We had some discussions with GOCO for, and that's the Great Outdoors Colorado, in looking at some of their grant opportunities for construction with completed design. They weren't interested in offering grant monies for commercial use. However, we've continued discussion there, and there might be an opportunity to leverage those funds back towards the Durox Park improvements. I'll take a moment to just give kind of a visual here of the location for that CDOT boat launch for those of you who are unfamiliar. So you'll notice just immediately south of Highway 82. So should you be traveling west on Highway 82 and make a left onto Willets Lane, that turnoff is an unimproved, or is a gravel, not seriously maintained entrance that takes you down to the river. And so it actually starts further to the left of this yellow box, if you can see, directly across from that Aspen's Basalt Mobile Home Park right there. Thanks, James. Any questions on this boat ramp? I'll do my best to answer.
There's a big diversion there, Robinson Ditch.
That's correct.
So is this above or below?
This would, the boat ramp, if you can see kind of where it tracks, James, would you mind using your cursor there? It's upriver, but just slightly. So that the put-in is immediately adjacent to the diversion.
Downstream.
Upstream.
Upstream.
If you can see where James's cursor is.
That's the, right, just downstream is the gate, right, to that?
Correct.
Yeah, correct.
And you're proposing that this is the public access? And
No, this is the commercial access.
there's no chance. I drive by that all the time. For those guys to back their trailer down with a bus.
So there's improvements proposed. So Ryan, so it's currently under contract for design. There'll be redesign down at the bottom of this drive to permit them to drive down the drive and then be able to back in.
I'll wait to see it, but I see how much traffic is currently at Durox Park. I'm always at the hardware store right there, so I've driven that Willits Lane for a long time, and I just, depending on how much work they can do in there, it's a great thought. I just think it's going to take a lot to get them to convert to there and to fit multiple buses with trailers down there, and that turning it, like, even turning left into Willits and then turning left into there. I'll wait to see the plan, but I think that's a big ask.
Is that utilized at all right now? Does anybody go to that,
People walk down there.
I mean, to launch?
Yeah, not as a launch spot to my knowledge, and part of that is because it is CDOT property. But we've pursued a license agreement with CDOT to be able to utilize this space.
So the idea is like, we got a lot of commercial operators at some points there.
Right.
On the.
And to have a separation of uses. I know it was mentioned during the Willits Lane plan presentations as well. And the hope is to not have vans and rafts parked in the middle of the bike lane and parked in the middle of the roadway as well at Durox Park, which just doesn't really have the capacity to host the number of users that it currently does.
I think to Ryan's point, like how it's laid out is going to be kind of key of whether that works or not. But I like the idea of kind of spreading it out.
I'll apologize. Yes. I want to see the plan. I encourage the plan. I think it's a great idea.
And we understand the skepticism, but we have been in conversations with the commercial guys, so
Perfect.
we think we can.
I just want to make sure. I mean,
There's
a lot of different.
This is what we were talking about the right stakeholders, right? Being in the room when we make these choices or contract or whatever. So yeah, if you're engaging with the commercial boat guys to help guide this process, I feel like that's exactly the right thing to do.
And especially too, if you bring them in with CDOT on the planning I know CDOT's not going to screw it up, but it's a big buy-in to get people to shift, and so.
Yeah, and the hope too is with the engineered improvements down there that there'll be better opportunities for staging, a better customer experience, and that, everybody wins here.
And I know Catherine also has meetings with the Roaring Fork Fishing Guide Alliance too, to kind of talk through that piece too, because they'd be a big commercial user of it as well. So.
Perfect.
Sweet.
All right, moving along. I'll just briefly touch on this. Again, Catherine's kind of the point person on this project, but the improvements to Confluence Park and Basalt Avenue and Two Rivers Road intersection, we did receive a Safe Routes to School grant for this project to be used in the year 2026. We're currently in conversation with CDOT regarding the rollout of that grant. Construction documents for the bridge renovation, which is one of the phases of that project, are currently in progress. Those deck improvements are estimated to be completed in 2026. The bid for construction installation under the CDOT grant will be issued separately, and those are set to be put out in January of 2026, with the hope for the project to start in Q2 of 2026. And just for kind of like a high level run through of the remaining parks that didn't necessarily get love in this presentation, fair to good condition parks, which are listed as medium priority through the asset management plan, include Albany Park, Gisela Fuse Skate Park, Linear Park, Lions Park, Southside Park, Wildwood, and the Willits Rugby Field. And then the good to very good condition parks are listed at the end there as well. Let it be noted, and I know Chris Beiser would like to note here, that these parks still get a lot of love through regular maintenance and minor infrastructure improvements. We do still have hopefully benches and trash receptacles, which will be improved here in the meantime, although there might not be kind of the larger capital improvements as we're discussing at the other parks.
Is the park in Willits, with the playground equipment, is that lumped into the rugby field?
Could you specify which one?
That's linear, sorry. Thank you. We call it the tunnel park.
Yes, still.
Right, it's the tunnel park.
Wish I had a tunnel park when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's the main attraction.
Quick comment on Albany. Albany is becoming quite the gathering place for the more downtown-y, old town, densely populated areas, being between the pool, the playground, and the open space, and the kilns, and the walkability of it. It really is becoming a real destination. You see a lot of things going on at the gazebo. There used to be a significant amount of use there, and then the mobile home parks that were here were vacated and gone, and it died off. But now there seems to be a real uptick in the number of kids, and Ryan can attest to this. He's over there on Saturdays at the pool. The parking lot is full all weekend. There was an event there with the sheriffs last Saturday, I think, and they were parked all the way out to Elkwood Drive. And it's just becoming a real hub, and it really does need a little more than just a little love. It needs to be finished in the phase of the playground. If you take a walk around on the loop around the field, and condition of the fence at the kilns, these are all smaller projects, but it's one of my pet things because we went through hell and high water to preserve those kilns a while back because they were going to be demoed. So, you know, look at that area. The weed management could be increased, and as long as we're on the subject, you know, take a cruise over there and check it out.
So
Drainage issues, there's a lot, and I think Roaring Fork Engineering might be involved with Catherine on the parking lot improvements and things like that.
So I will mention that the top part, I'll just kind of remind everybody, that was all based off of our asset management plan. We'll move into the 2026 work plan. Some of this is going to be all repeated here for you, but I'll move quick through that stuff. There are a number of projects that will be included in the 2026 work plan for Post that include some maintenance things that were not included in the 2024 estimates, and that includes like 4 or 5 small improvements at Albany Park. It includes upgrades to the bathrooms and the inclusion of a dry vault to improve drainage around the parking area, some improvements to the trails to make them more accessible and safer as well, and implementation of some of the recommendations related to the kilns. So there are a number of improvements there, and I think the heavy usage means that those things, you know, for better or worse, don't go unnoticed. And just one note about kind of where we are in our process. We've gone through our priorities with the Post Committee, scheduled out those priority projects, reviewed internally with staff to make sure that we have the capacity to handle these projects, both from an oversight perspective for the projects that are being contracted out, as well as the capacity to execute the projects for the projects that will be conducted in-house. Where we're at now is making a recommendation to council. Our Post has made these recommendations, and then we're looking for your thumbs up to include these capital priorities in the 2026 town budget. So I'll try to move quickly here, like I said, through our 2025 accomplishments and the 2026 draft work plan. Just a quick nod here initially to the folks who sit on our post committee. Names you'll see on the screen. And also a nod to the goals as set out in the 2020 master plan related to parks, trails, and open space. So covering some of our 2025 accomplishments here. For those of you who haven't been over there, Triangle Park, those improvements were completed in July of this year, including the Alpine Demonstration Garden, pride of Chris Beiser, and improvements to the irrigation and the fountain element over there in Triangle Park. These aesthetic and operational improvements have improved a really highly visible point node in our town. Albany Park, so commenting on this for you, Rick, improvements to the dry vault and bathrooms are planned for Q3 and Q4 of this year, helping to use up some available funds in our post budget. Additionally, the kilns restoration recommendations have been outlined with bids advertised, bids to be advertised, sorry, late this year. Restoration on those kilns to occur in 2026. The Basalt River Park, we were able to utilize some post funding to install a free mini golf course, which I'm sure all of you have seen, as well as replacing one of the initial trees that was planted over there with the completion of the river park with a swing set. That swing set is almost ready to go, but if you guys have seen it, the construction has been going on for about the last 10 days. We'll see if it'll be ready for tomorrow. I'm not holding my breath on it, but looks fantastic. Questions there? For all parks, working on new signage. Those signs, as approved, are currently in fabrication. The hope is to have those installed by the end of this year.
Look really nice.
I would agree.
Yeah, I like them.
I think we can skip through Durox Park, but those plans are currently in design. Any questions? This is repeated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, go back one. Improvements to Midland and Old Pound Park boardwalks, as mentioned, we have contracts for both of those improvements to be completed this year. Design in progress for Confluence Park, Basalt Avenue. Skip through this. And just one note here that the Willets Lane improvements, the improvements to the Midland Park boardwalks, as well as the Old Pound boardwalks, all of these improvements are part of a goal of the town to apply for and receive bicycle-friendly community designation. So in this process, we have set out kind of a set of goals here to achieve that certification. And we have identified the priority infrastructure improvements to be made and are moving into installation of that wayfinding signage before we move into those hard capital and infrastructure improvements. Moving into partnerships briefly that Post has to speak of in 2025. The Mid-Valley Trails Commission, I know we've talked about it here, has become a partner now after some direction from RAFTA. What that partnership is going to look like is about $125,000 in annual capital contributions. The town of Basalt has been directed to lead this Trails Commission, which expands the scope of trail infrastructure that we can improve in and around the Mid-Valley. Importantly as well, there's approximately $800,000 in capital reserves that we'll be able to access as well.
Well, I have a different impression of you're saying we've been selected, because the last time Raptor was in here, that wasn't the conversation.
So the conversation was for the town of Basalt to lead the Mid-Valley Trails Commission.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, we need like an IGA, and I think what we talked about was kind of what specifically, from a scope perspective, are we signing up for? Because it was a little general. I mean, there's definitely a benefit for, I mean, the Willits Lane, that project is exactly what some of that money is supposed to be used for, as from a trails perspective, but we just want to make sure
Correct.
we're fully eyes wide open what we're signing up for, et cetera.
It's my understanding.
I told the raft board that too.
Yeah, and I understand that you have a leadership position there as well. We have been working iteratively with RAFTA on that language. There's no pen to paper at this point, but the partnership has started. We'll say that those conversations are being had, and the hope is to have language in front of council before the end of the year to solidify this.
And there's likely going to be Mid-Valley Trails Committee members actually joining the post committee as well, the town's post committee. George Trantow, for one, is coming on to the town's post committee to kind of act as a liaison between the two.
And it's my understanding that
David, my understanding is RAFTA has been working on the IGA, as Carlton just said, pen to paper. I mean, none of this has actually been memorialized.
That's right.
Needs to be.
And not in the
Absolutely
memorialization and the elaboration on the scope. I mean, because we want to see that too. Just haven't gotten all the details.
Exactly.
But I mean, in
So
principle, I get it, but you know.
Yeah. Thank you for your clarification. It's oversight role, but yeah. One other partnership that we'd like to bring to light from the 2025 year was presented to you guys at the last meeting, which is a partnership with Pitkin County through the Whitewater Park. Those improvements, as part of this long process that they've been undergoing, set to begin in this fall. I know they came and presented at length at our last meeting, and so I don't think we really need to go into much more detail here.
It might be fun to ask the commercial operators why they don't use that space up there at coming into town on the east end more, and the boat ramp there, why they don't use that more for access.
By Fisherman Park there?
Yeah.
No.
Nobody uses it.
It's a good question.
You know, so I would get some feedback as to why. Maybe include that in your conversations with the river guys.
And I just would note that there's significant linear distance there between the Whitewater Park and Willits Lane. And so I would personally say, and I think that the members of Post would agree as well, that these are two different spaces that we're hoping to improve, and I don't think they really occupy the same geographic space. So the hope would be to, increase the resources in, both the eastern part and the western part of Basalt.
I think he's getting at is curious why an operator's not using it now, right?
If there was like a physical impediment.
Yeah, we can ask. I don't know.
It's just not, they have their routes. Maybe it's just not the section of river. They just don't do that section that way or something. I don't know.
We can ask though.
This is a good spot. I mean, there's good trailer parking. I mean, I see private people there all the time with trailers, but bless you, I've just never seen a commercial operator.
I hate to prolong this conversation, but part of the economic impact that this Whitewater Park was supposed to have for Basalt has really never been fulfilled. There was a quote in here from one of the commissioners that this was going to be $1 million economic boost to Basalt's tourism business, and I just haven't seen it. So maybe there's a way you can see if that has happened. But I go by there quite a bit, and there's a few odd kayakers, but nobody utilizes that parking lot. Maybe it's hard to get in and out of. There's restrooms there. We're putting restrooms in down by the access to the Whitewater Park. So, there is something going on there that's not attracting the people we thought were going to be attracted there. So I would just take a look at that.
Maybe somebody does go there, we just don't see it too, I don't know.
I think the wave is full of kids
I mean, like
on the frequent
commercial.
places, but I think when you're riding the river, you want to park it a little bit up, or I think it's about distances and getting a good run in over time. Maybe April can back that up, but yeah, if you start there, you would pull out here or just right across the road here, I think would be cool places. But I think it's what are you in for and what's exciting between here and there.
It'd be nice to see the trips that they have. You know, I've been used to going from different points to different places up and down all.
Yeah, because they all kind of follow the same pattern.
Yeah.
And just in conclusion, kind of bringing us back to where we started, it's been the first full year of implementing the 2024 asset management strategy and using that information to make data-informed planning and budgeting decisions. So excited to come to you guys and present a holistic vision of what our capital improvements plan and maintenance looks like in relation to parks, trails, and open space.
Just two quick things would be, one, if we could somehow track the usage of Cliffs Hillside Park. I don't know if we can put some like motion detector or something. I truly don't think it gets a lot of use. I walk by it a lot. So we're spending all this money for a park that doesn't get a ton of use. Not to say that we shouldn't do something there, but just that and the music park, I don't know how much actual use they're getting. But one other thing I wanted to bring to post attention and something that I've been learning about, and I talked to Matt at the rec department, is the school district is having a really hard time in the summer maintaining our baseball fields. And the rec department is one of the #1 users of the baseball fields, as well as obviously during the school year, the kids are using them. But we have an unsafe baseball field. We have 2 unsafe baseball fields in Basalt, and it's something that I would like post, or we have an intergovernmental agreement with the school district, and it's something that maybe as a town we can partner with to make sure that we have really nice stuff for our rec department to be using. And Matt knows, and I've talked to him, and I think there's a lot of different strategies about it, but just something to bring to post's attention.
Maybe elaborate on the unsafe, what that means playing baseball.
Yeah, I guess, and even for me, like as an assistant coach, I was like, whatever, like what are you talking about? It's just a baseball field. I mean, the grass is semi-uncapped, and listen, this isn't, I've talked to the school district about it. They are short-staffed, it's summer, it's not their priority, totally understand. And Matt knows too. The dirt is covered in weeds, it's not a very good dirt surface. When balls are hit, they have a very different trajectory, and so we had some kids taking balls to the face that was dangerous, and I saw it firsthand, so it was very impactful for me. And just to see, if you go to the high school field, it's really nice, and that's a good comment to the athletic director up there. He's putting a ton of time and effort in to keep those fields really, really nice. But if you go to Crown Mountain, I mean, their fields are world class, and so just for something in our town that we use as the rec department, if it's something we can put in budget through post, through a partnership with the school district, through private, I'm sure there's some parents out there that would help. But I just wanted to bring that to town's attention. And I know Matt's on it. It's not, he put a ton of money to the tennis courts this year. But just wanted to, while we were discussing this, make sure we're working.
I think that's totally valid, yeah.
Working with the school district and.
They spray infields with
Ryan,
water.
Ryan, I talked to Matt about it as well. It is a budget issue. I don't think it's post that can be used for land that's the school district. I think it really is function of the IGA that we have with Roaring Fork or with the school district itself. I think it's really just a budget matter.
Okay.
Address it. Yeah.
No problem.
Any other questions or discussion?
As far, I know, we talked about the post-restricted funds earlier. It'd be good in the budget process, like, let's just, those restricted funds we're taking in, seeing specifically what they're going to. So everybody just, y'all get on the same page on what we're using those for. I mean, I know the lodging tax money that chamber, parks, park maintenance and concerts, but like in general, that's come up a few times, and it'd be good just to kind of level set on that and people understand what those go to, and then we can look at the, if we want to make any adjustments or consider how we would do that.
For sure. And I think, again, speaking to kind of a process change this year, in prior years, there'd just been a pool of funds that had been doled out kind of on a as-needed basis to try to do maintenance work. A lot of times, well behind when maintenance was needed in our parks, trails, and open space. And the hope now is to have, not only a comprehensive look at what needs to be addressed within town, but also having better estimates for what the capital ask is going to be there. And then those will be closer in line kind of with the budget on an annual basis.
Okay. So less deferred and ad hoc and more planned and, okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
Preventative maintenance generally is a little bit more affordable as well. So
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you for the thorough presentation. There's
Well done.
thanks, guys.
good stuff in there.
All right, so we have an executive session motion, if someone wants to read it.
Mayor, I move that the town council enter executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that are or may become subject to negotiations in accordance with CRS 24-6-402-4E, more specifically acquisition of the mobile home parks and related deed restrictions.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, so we are going to enter an executive session. When we conclude, the meeting will be adjourned, and Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Steph.